And I am the other one. I'm not sure whether to call myself a Mark or Explorers Guild Publishing. That's my Twitch name. Whatever. Mm-hmm. And they have some kind of spicy flags on for today. Um, so a lot of these will not be easily understood by people who haven't done the Worlds Collide before, so I'll go over them as much as I can. The first and one of the biggest ones is that Y remove is on. So the Y button on their controllers, if they walk up to an NPC and push the Y button, they're just going to delete that NPC right away. So that's going to end up changing a few of the routes in some cases because some things like locked doors do count as NPCs, I've been told. Mm-hmm. And a few other ones. The enemy strength will be based on the levels of the characters, so there is some scaling in this game. You start at level 3, I believe, on all seeds, and the enemies will kind of scale up with the character level in this one, as opposed to progression or anything like that. All espers will grant very few spells, only 1 to 2 per esper, and only one character has natural magic. Magic being one of the really strong strategies in this game that's gonna end up causing a couple of issues for some of our runners, perhaps. They do, however, start with 4 characters, 120,000 gold pieces, 10 warp stones, and 10 phoenix downs.
Yes, and that'll give them a little more of a cushion at the beginning, kind of a nice quality of life, especially the warp stones, that being a newer addition that we've added recently.
Yeah, I very much remember playing before that, and sometimes whether you're going to get a PB or not was based entirely on whether you found warp stones in the shops or not. That is not going to be a problem with this race, though.
Right, and it's definitely something you had to consider with different, different checks you could do.
Mm-hmm. Someone mentioned they can't hear you. Is that...
I believe I fixed that. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I had that disabled for a second, but yes, I'm back now. To reintroduce myself, I'm Seto Kiaiba, both the restreamer and the commentator. So,
very few spells. So he's going to be busy.
Yes. So I apologize for any technical difficulties, but I think we're all squared away now.
Mm-hmm. There are just 2 more flags to go over real quick. Character stats are 66 to 200%, so the characters will either be real weak or real strong. We're not quite sure yet. And strong abilities like Throw, Blitz, and Shock are more likely to appear in the characters. So that's another thing to watch out for. Oh, Bum Rush is available immediately, and we can see already Jex Vrock, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, is going for that right now.
And that's definitely going to be interesting. Bum Rush, being a little bit of a time hit to do. It's cutscene's almost a minute long, but a huge offensive move early on for our runners.
And I'm not quite sure if any of the characters technically started with Bum Rush, but by the fact that they actually went for it, I'm guessing someone has it.
Yes. Sorry, excuse me 1 second. Okay. Alright, cool. Sorry. Had a few technical problems. I think we're good on that front.
Alright, let me try refreshing the stream as well. I'm just looking at a couple static screens. That's probably not supposed to be the way it works out. Oh, hello ads. But in either case, yeah, because of the enemy scaling in this one, I believe it's actually going to be somewhat difficult, so they're going to need all the strong abilities that they can get.
Yes. If you can bear with me 1 second, I need to double check a few things. I'm going to go silent for a moment.
Absolutely. Seems that refreshing the page did not help all that much. Looks like Zelfer got himself some earrings, though. Those are going to really help with the magic stat, either with the spells or many, many of the abilities, because a lot of them scale based off of magic. Oh, and Setzer is the one who has Blitz, so... Alright, he's going to just be bum rushing everything for the first little bit here. Right now, you can see that everyone is going to Narsh and the Returner's Cave. Those are areas that have an awful lot of treasure checks without any kind of combat. And because of the scaling of the monsters, they're going to need a little bit of extra power in there in order to not get a party wipe, which costs quite a bit of time. Especially if you actually go through the entire fight and don't just reset out of it immediately. Oh good, the stream seems to be catching up, at least in the case of Sid. So I have something to talk about, hooray! Oh, and you can see Celeste just threw a fire rod at him, and fire rods are an item that are extremely helpful, particularly early on, because when you break that item, that character will cast fire too and have a real big boost to the magic power of it. Oh, and he ended up resetting out because he didn't really care about that chest. Sad. But anyway, fire rods. You're going to see everyone buying a whole bunch of those right away. The shops themselves also have their items randomized quite a bit. So that's why everyone's running into all these shops, sometimes buying things and sometimes not, just to see what's in there and remember it for the future in case they can't afford it, though that is not likely in this seed. Oh. And Jex Vrock showing off his ability to remove NPCs with the letter Y because he accidentally talked to that man and then just murdered him for it. Oh, and he's just going on a tear right now, grabs a memento ring and kills someone else on the way, because why not? Now we see in the Returner's Cave. There's a few items in here. Unfortunately, it is lagging at very improper spots, and I can't actually tell you anything other than the green beret he got.
I am back. I apologize. I think I
No
figured
problem.
out why there was some lag. So hopefully things should be better now.
Well, I can't tell if it's for anyone else or just me, though I'm having some issues. I'll try refreshing it again. So if you want to talk about what they're getting for a moment, I'll be right back.
Sure thing. So, over with Sid, we're seeing that he's doing the typical South Figaro loot run. A lot of our runners will hit up the Returner's hideout in South Figaro early for a high density of items, both hopefully find something good and find things to potentially sell. Meanwhile, it looks like Mr. Enti is electing to get some levels in right now. Something that, can be a little rough early on because that is obviously not gearing towards any progress check, but getting ahead on the levels can really make some of the initial checks a lot easier. Level 3 is very hard to kind of deal with, and getting out of that hole is normally a big hump a lot of runners have to get over.
Yeah. I believe this one is scaled based on character level, though, so it's not as big a deal as normal, but it still will be helpful in every case.
Yes.
The fact that they also have fire rods available in Narsh, which basically every one of them noticed, is going to be quite nice for them as well. And the lag is gone and everyone's actually moving. Ah, what a wonderful time to stream.
Yes. Hopefully things should be better. I think I figured out what was going on with that. Turns out you probably should not minimize VLC. I guess it cares about that. So,
Interesting.
This is my first time running the restream, so thank you everyone for your patience. I really appreciate it.
All right. Ooh, and we do not get to see what is in that stone up there, likely because he spent a little bit too much money.
So, were any flags changed involving either starting money or money dropped from enemies?
Yes, one of the flags you likely didn't hear is the characters start with 120,000 gold pieces.
That will be it will make early shops very important. I noticed that Mr. Entity went and checked the Tizen Thief, another early check that is very good with this huge amount of money because it really could give you, a magicite or an item that can get you an early edge over the rest of the runners.
Right. Looks like Mr. Entity has reached level about 9 with his characters, and that's probably going to be enough for him. Oh, and we see a bunch of people doing the South Figaro Celeste check because you're already there for the really high number of treasure chests. You might as well grab Celeste right there. And she's also one of the what's called a free check, which means there's no actual required combat in order to get it. So really, really high value check right there. Oof, unfortunately, it's just force armor.
Yeah, and those free checks, they're both a blessing and a curse this early on, that it is great not having to fight a boss or a series of enemies. However, if it is a character or an esper, it will increase progress. So doing too many free checks while low levels means that bosses could potentially out-level a runner who is maybe a little careless. So that is something all of our runners are keeping in mind and considering.
Yeah. Not finding terribly much underneath South Figaro, as we're watching Sid found like a Warpstone green cherry. Warpstone would be nice, but because they start with so many of them, he has enough to make it through the entire run. Ooh, a Dragonhorn, though. That will actually be quite helpful, assuming they do any jump strats.
That's right. Drum sets are very, very powerful, but involve a few not rare but not common pieces. The horn being one of the one of the rarer pieces with it. Boots you can typically find in a lot of relic shops.
Yes.
But a good spear user or even a fixed dice can really go well with a boots and horn combo.
Yeah. Does the fixed dice, when you jump with them, use the same formula that it normally does? Or does it get doubled for jumping or anything like that?
It gets doubled for jumping, which is why it's a pretty popular strategy, because it also, the jumping animation is significantly less than the fixed dice animation. So that eliminates one of the problems with the fixed dice, it being its longer animation.
It is not a fast attack.
Plus, given the stronger abilities rolled in this seed, jump is considered one of the stronger abilities, and it is potentially available to a player. Not as prevalent as shock or throw, but still very, very possible for someone to get a native jumper, which gives them more options with equipment.
Yeah, because the Dragoon boots usually take up one of your relic slots, and relic slots are extremely valuable. But if you're a natural jumper, you just need the Dragonhorn, and then you can go to town, throw on Hyper Wrist for, the really cheap stuff, or a few other things if you have a little bit more selection on your items.
Exactly.
Let's see. Oh, one other thing. If you have not played the game quite a bit yourself, you may not have found the Moogle Charm. What that does is that prevents you from finding any random encounters. There are fixed encounters and random encounters. Random encounters are the ones you find all over the place. There's a few fixed encounters, like when you're on the raft, but all of our runners start out with 3 Moogle Charms, so they have the option to fight things or not to.
Exactly. I was talking to a real life friend today about this game, and he asked about how do you speedrun a long game like Final Fantasy. And the Moogle Charms are one of many quality of life improvements that we've added as part of the randomizer to make it a little more digestible for speedrunning races like this.
Yes, obviously it's in the normal game as well, but you find it, in the last 3/4 of the game for sure. Before that, you just have your Charm Bangle, which reduces the amount of random encounters, but you still got quite a bit of fights that otherwise people would not particularly take if they had the option.
Right. It looks like Sid is doing the Setzer Doomgaze check and has run into... Is that either Atma or Atma Weapon he ran into there?
Atma. I believe that's Toilet Atma.
Ooh. Toilet Atma, obviously the stronger of the two, and one of the scariest bosses in the game.
Yeah, that's an optional endgame boss. So, oh look, optional endgame boss damage. He is, and yeah, reset. That sounds about right. One thing that Zelfer was doing on the bottom right, you may notice there, is he went to South Figaro in the World of Balance, and then he flipped over to the World of Ruin, and then went there again, because the checks are actually different in this. So if you find a whole bunch of stuff in South Figaro, and you still need a little bit more, you can flip over to the World of Ruin and run through there again, and hopefully you'll find something else you need.
Only the outside checks, though. Indoor checks are shared between the two. But it is also a second set of shops, and given the amount of money that our runners have, hitting up as many shops as possible is a very good and smart strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And Zelfer also just bought himself a whole bunch of bolt edges, which is extremely valuable because the throw command is just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's my favorite command in the game. I think it's the most powerful and consistent no matter what level you are, even if it maybe tapers off a little bit at the end. Especially that non-elemental, defense ignoring damage of shurikens are very handy in a lot of situations.
Mm-hmm. I do not remember the town name that he's currently in, but Zelfer also found a fixed dice just for sale in the weapon shop, so he may end up coming back here for those at some point if he decides it's worth it. As we said before, it's a very long animation. It may not be worth.
Yes, it's definitely, it looks like he's in World of Ruin Albrook, and it is, if I'm a runner, I would not put high priority over it, but you don't want to discount it, especially with some of the jump strats we previously mentioned.
Right.
Jack on his screen, though, has found pearl rods for sale. With the weapon selection they have, breakable rods are in shops, and while they're not as cheap as fire rods, finding those can really make potentially some early boss fights a lot more manageable.
Yeah. The undead bosses in the normal game, you can just throw Phoenix down at them and, they die. However, that is an option in the Worlds Collide randomizer, which means that generally you can't just throw a Phoenix down at the Phantom Train to kill it. So if you find a Pearl Rod, for example, that's really going to speed it up. It'll be almost as fast as throwing Phoenix down at it.
Right. However, regular enemies, you still can use Phoenix Downs and Revivifies on, and so, especially with getting some early grinding, sometimes it's good to know that, because there are some very high experience undead enemies that you can very easily kill. Non-boss enemies, that is.
Right. On that note, there are a few items as well, like the elemental shields that you can also break from the inventory, but those are much rarer, and it kind of hurts every time you do it.
Yes, elemental shields have many uses. Big grenade is a one, especially for the end, but also sometimes you need to break that thunder shield to get over an early boss to really open the seat up for you. And that is a tough choice that runners always have to kind of balance between themselves. It's a very big risk reward.
It's one thing that really separates the extremely experienced runners from the others, because you have your fire shield in the very beginning and you end up beating a boss that's weak to it. Is it worth it to break that shield, which will give you so much defense and you can almost ignore some bosses with it? Or do you want to beat the boss faster and get your experience faster, just get through everything faster?
Exactly.
Really up to each individual, run.
And of course, the question of merchant strats as well, and whether you want that, potential merchant protection. So a lot of things they have to weigh. Have we talked about the Cursed Shield yet?
We have not, no.
So, as most people who play vanilla are aware, the Cursed Shield, you have to fight so many battles with it on, and it becomes, it evolves into the Paladin Shield, one of the best pieces of equipment in the game. But as we're seeing on Sid's screen, typically to get that, we need lock to unlock this door. But with Y NPC remove, we can just use Y to go right through that door, which means all of our runners have access to the Cursed Shield from the very beginning.
And because this is, the Worlds Collide randomizer, they can actually select how many battles it takes to beat, and Sid's about to grab it. It will take 3 battles. That is absolutely worth it.
Yes, and exactly. And typically with the Cursed Shield, unless you need lock to get it, and if you don't get it early, finding those battles, might not be something that is obtainable. But with YNPC on, there's no reason not to get it every single time.
A really quick thing, Zelfer actually did just find lock in the cafe that you generally find Setzer in the game. So even if they didn't have Y remove, they could do that now, but he's running up to Mount Zuzu to get rid of the Cyan checks as well. Is it Cyan or Cyan? I can never remember.
I always said Cyan, but there's a big debate in the World Sky community with some of these pronunciations. Celeste or Celis being the biggest point of argument of how to pronounce her name.
Okay.
It's the problem with something that has no voice acting that we all we all figured out impersonations for at age 10 or however old we were when we played this game.
Yeah. So are you hashtag Team Celeste or hashtag Team Celis?
I literally alternate between the two as I'm doing my own streams because I don't
no.
know.
Oh, how could you? It's so terrible.
Just love to be a wild card, just great everyone at once.
Good choice.
One interesting thing with Zelfer being at Mount Zozo early is whether or not he will be forcing a dragon early on. Dragons being a great source of MP and experience and potential great items, but
yeah,
even scaled this early can be really scary, and it looks like he is potentially skipping over the dragon spawn.
It does look like that, and he also found what looks like an empty check up here. It's kind of a long walk for that, so that's unfortunate.
Well, they do have, he did pick up a few treasures, which was nice. It could work out, so it wasn't a complete loss. As far as checks goes, Mount Zozo is a very good one.
Oh, that's another one, Zozo or Zuzu. Red cap is helpful. I do like the red cap.
It is solid, if not underwhelming. You're never sad to see it, but it's not going to break a game open for you.
Yeah, no, it's no offering when you have the Valiant Knife or anything like that.
Exactly. One of the interesting things that might come up in this seed, especially for people who maybe have not been paying much attention to Worlds Collide over the last month or two, is that we have made changes to the Atma weapon. That now the formula for it kicks in after level 32 instead of 64 like before, which makes it a lot more of a potential endgame weapon in Worlds Collide than it previously was.
Yeah. This is not a marathon seed, but even in this one, it may end up playing a big role. Because it's absolutely worth finding now, whereas before, in most seeds, it was kind of worthless.
Yeah, it was worth money, worth selling.
Hey, speaking of Atma weapon, that was just found on Zelfer.
Awesome. I love to see it. It'd be very... I think that's one more crazy endgame build that requires a little bit of work that can make, different runners have very different build outs come the final battle, and that's always exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of exciting to watch, even though this is character gated, because they start with 4 characters, everyone is doing a different check right now. It's fantastic.
Yeah, because we have a whole bunch of characters that have a lot of different checks. Celeste and Terra both, having Celeste having 3+ and Terra having 5. Just a lot of different directions people can go. Though we are seeing both Jack and Sid at Doma, it looks like, fighting the Three Stooges.
The 3 Dream Stooges.
Yep.
Real quick, they are obviously going to be focus firing the top one because, first of all, he throws out cures, and also he will throw out a life too if one of his brothers dies. So, yeah, just kill the top one every time.
Always the first one to die, and then the one on the far left's interesting too because he can be instant death as well, which means that it can go downhill very quickly once you kill the top one.
Mm-hmm. I, for example, did not know that, so you will always just be learning all the new things when you're watching people who actually know how to play the game.
That is one of the great things about Worlds Collide, in my opinion, is the amount of in-depth, weird niche knowledge that could come up in runs is fascinating, and you never know when little things like that might, get you first place over second in a run.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, chat has suggested that instead of debating over Cyan or Kyan, we just call him Mr. Thou, which, that's nice.
I think that's easy enough, Thou. Mr. Thou's his father. I think Thou is, perfectly reasonable thing.
That's fair. I understand. Ooh, throwing an X potion. Looks like Sid is having a little bit of difficulty with the Dream Stooges. That's hopefully... Oh, nope, it hit. Ugh.
The Dream Stooges are a very tough endgame boss.
Yes.
Especially if you do not kill them fast enough, they can do this Delta attack, which will petrify one of your people, which you don't want to see when you only have 2 left.
Yeah, and it has a extremely high hit rate. It might be 100%, I'm not sure.
Whereas Jack seems to want to get a few more levels in by taking advantage of some of the encounters here, which is faster than taking random encounters, because you can just walk up and hit A on them, and so
interesting. Okay, I never thought about that, but You're absolutely right.
It's a strategy that doesn't get used a lot, but it can save you a few extra seconds because different areas of the different game have different encounter rates, and this or the Imperial base are good places of known encounters where you can control how quickly you get them.
Mm-hmm. Not to. Ooh, looks like Sid had to take a reset on that. That's a bit unfortunate.
That is
But
rough.
oh, and there's Sabin in the shadow spot normally at Gao's dad's house.
Right, if we were talking about how there's going to be how there's so many checks already, well, Saban gives 5 more that open up, so we're going to see runners all throughout the world, all different corners, doing different things.
Yeah, and oh man, every time I mention a character's name, you just say it differently. I always call him Sabin, but in either case, he has, as you mentioned, 5 checks, and all of them are pretty darn good.
Yes, a check wise, he's one of my favorites. Terra, I like starting with a little bit better because of all the treasure. But
Oh yeah,
if I see a Sabin with 3 checks left, I'm very, very happy.
yeah. And one thing that the runners will likely do at some point during this race is they're going to do what's called a where they will check the checks, haha, before they actually do them. Sabin, for example, if you go to the Phantom train, you immediately take a right. That's where the check is. And if it's something you don't want, just reset out because it is not worth walking through the entire train to get something you don't care about.
Yes, and that's a cool thing about Worlds Collide, as far as I'm concerned, is that almost no 2 checks are the same. There's a lot you're weighing, whether you can peek a check or not, like you mentioned, whether or not there's fights or not, the amount of time with it, whether or not a check is guaranteed a character, such as in Cyan's Dream. These runners are on the fly weighing all these options together while trying to come up with an optimal route, because each check is so different and so interesting.
Yeah, it's really one of the big pluses of this particular randomizer. All right, looks like Phantom was found at the Ragnarok spot. Gives +1 magic power. I did not happen to catch the spells on it, but there's only a couple spells in this particular set of flags we have.
And Mr. NT is checking the most forgotten Imperial camp tent, the one that you have to jump behind. I think it took me a month before I even realized that thing was there.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know until I was actually watching somebody run this, and then I just, yelled out loud because I've been playing the game for over 20 years, and of course I never found it.
It looks like Jack is finally attempting the Dream Stooges now that he has a whole bunch more levels on him, and so we'll see how quickly he can, make mincemeat of these, 3 hooligans.
Hopefully he has a little bit more luck than Sid, because it looks like Sid has just sort of decided that check can be done later. And he's right, it's one of the really, really fast checks, thankfully. So he didn't have to go through an entire, dungeon to fight a boss he couldn't beat, which is always extremely tragic.
Whereas Mr. Entity, he is going to find an Esper here at Imperial Camp. Imperial Camp's one of those few checks where you know exactly what you're getting. If it is not a character or an Esper, it would kick him out after the first fight and instantly give him the item. But if it brings you to the screen, you can tell immediately if it's a character, because the character will be where the ghost is, or if it's an Esper. So very good to know sometimes, especially near the end of a run. If you're looking for something, you can easily exit out with it.
Alright, so definitely going to be an Esper here then, because that was the first fight, and he's still here.
Yep.
And Jax definitely just beat up the Dream Stooges, so he is a little bit ahead as far as that goes. Let's check the totals on everyone. Wow, 7 characters for Mr. Entity. I would say he's definitely in the lead as far as that goes.
Yes, he definitely's got a lot of good early checks. He's going to get a second Esper here, yeah, well, I'm curious to see where his route takes him compared to the others. This is always anyone's game. You never know how levels factor in, or sometimes where just the luck goes. And with how many open checks there are at the moment, you can easily find someone just get into a lucky groove of just knocking out Esper after Esper and making a comeback.
Now, Jex Vrock, I don't believe he has Terra, but he is down here in this room. Did he press Y to get through that locked door?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Unfortunately, didn't find terribly much incredible there, but wait, is he allowed to do the Terra check? Because the only actual stop there is technically an NPC.
I believe so.
Interesting.
I will be the first to admit that Y remove is not my strongest skill set. It's something I need to play around with more, but since it's not on the standard race flags or Coliseums, I've not had that much of a chance. But I believe it's one of those that and such like all of Egder's checks in South Figaro Cave can all be bypassed via the Y remove.
Ooh. I believe Jexfrock just attempted to use a remedy instead of a Revify on one of those undead enemies, which wasted a valuable item and some time. So that's a little bit unfortunate.
Whereas Zelfer here, he just ran into some Stray Cats, which while normally we wouldn't pay too much attention about random enemies, Stray Cat is more unique because his rage is considered one of the best rages in the game. Stray Cat, the rage lets you attack for 4 times the amount of damage you normally do. And while I don't think we have any characters with rage yet, rage is in the stronger ability pool that they're using, and can make a very strong endgame build, especially with something like a offering. So,
right,
it's very rare to see, but when you do, you got to keep that in mind of a very good endgame strategy.
Yes, but I believe you have to go to the Veldt and actually find that encounter, correct?
No, in Worlds Collide, that and lures were changed, so you just had to fight the enemy in question. So,
never mind. Never mind. It's much easier.
Rages are just the enemies you fought. You don't need to leap them. Just like with lures, you don't need to be hit with the ability. You just have to see the ability, and you can learn lures before you even have a person with lore in your party as well. Just kind of quality of life stuff to make these abilities more useful in a speedrunning setting.
Okay. Jex just passed by one of the other fixed encounter checks where you can pull that lever and fight something. I've used that a couple times. Usually it's not worth, but if you want a quick encounter and if it's good, you can repeat it as many times as you want.
Exactly, especially if it's something that gives a lot of experience for a little effort or a lot of gold. Quick farming of that.
Oh, looks like the wrong Esper is actually hiding out inside the Magitech factory.
It's so interesting seeing everyone's in a completely different place than anyone else has been at the moment. And
not even close.
No, not even close. And I mean, you have Opera House. You have, we're seeing both Magitech Factory and Floating Content. Both are very long dungeons with multiple checks. This is very fun and interesting to watch.
I love the fact that there are just some flying dogs on the upper right side of the screen right now.
They're in a long, slow jump is what they're doing.
Oh, gotcha. Must have, reduced, or, incredibly increased, actually, air resistance. And, just all those things you need to ignore the 9.8 meters per second.
Whereas Sid here is fighting Tritok, a very interesting boss. Tritok has the highest defense you can have and is immune to every element that isn't fire. But he has very low magic defense. So if you have fire, you'll tear right through him, and that could be a big thing early on in runs because sometimes you get the Tritok and you just don't have the tools to do any damage to it. In this case, Sid does, but always something to keep in mind.
In the very, very beginning, as we mentioned, they all found their fire rods in Narsh, so no matter who finds that one, they'll probably be pretty happy about it.
Yes, between that and Shock, they should be pretty good for those who are using Lock.
Shock is magic, but I believe it's non-elemental damage, so there's nobody who's going to be resisting that all that much.
Exactly. Non-elemental is perfectly fine, so flares and meteors also work well, too.
Unfortunately, long cast times on those. Not so much on Shock. It's pretty good. The animation cast time-wise. Ooh, a Doomgaze. Hopefully he is not a multiple of 5. Okay, he's fine.
Whereas Magenti is fighting Penumbra, not a terribly hard boss, but he has a lot of HP no matter, what point in the game you fight him. So it can be a little long sometimes.
Yeah, he's just a giant, disgusting hit point bag.
Though it does give us a good opportunity to talk about Bum Rush, since Mr. NT just, used that on Penumbra. Bum Rush is interesting in that it is very high amount of magical damage
Hmm.
non-elemental, but it's single target and in random. You do not get to pick who you can hit with it.
Yeah.
So for people like Penumbra here, it's absolutely amazing. Less amazing against Kefka Tier 2, for example.
Yeah. He is doing about 4,000 damage with it every time, and he has, I believe, either a Thunder Shield or Paladin Shield on Setzer, because he is just eating all these Lightning Tubes and gaining life from them, so he's gonna break through this boss eventually, and he, at this point, is probably feeling real good about getting that Bum Rush early.
Yes, if I was him, though, my concern would be not whether I can beat the boss or whether you can keep everyone alive to get all the experience, because Penumbra does give a good amount of experience, and you don't want someone to be taking a dirt nap and miss out on it.
Yeah, all those late game World of Ruin bosses, they're just so full of experience points, it's kind of painful.
Right. And, mid game, your goal here is to just try to get as high above the progression curve as possible in order to just keep up your speed. Because it's going to slow down a bit come Kefka's Tower. So you want to try to get as many levels within as possible in a short amount of time.
One moment.
So Sid here is electing to go for the third Magic Attack Factory check. Magic Attack Factory, the third check, you have to fight 2 bosses and sit through a slow auto-scroller. And at the point Sid's at now, he cannot warp out with a Warp Stone. So some runners elect after the second check to warp out and to forgo the third one. But it is a gamble because the third check is the only check in the Magic Factory that has a character. And you don't want to warp out to find that your progress was locked behind the character at the end of Magic Attack. So it's always a risk-reward. But Sid is electing to maybe play it a little bit safer and to finish out the last check here.
Yeah. Speaking of playing it safe, we see that Mr. Entity is doing, as you were saying before, trying just to keep everybody up with Celeste, but he might have actually run out of Phoenix down at this point because he's just trying to burn the boss down as far as I can tell at the moment, because he has raised so many people and there have just been so many bolt twos thrown toward them.
Well, the nice thing though is that even if he finishes it and can't raise them before the end, you do get an auto heal between the first and second Air Force battle, and so everyone will be revived for the second fight, which is fortunate. Even if they do miss out on that experience.
Mm-hmm. And now we see Jexfrock has found Kefka, the Kefka at Narsh Kefka, obviously. I believe this is in the tunnel armor spot. And oh my gosh, speaking of tunnel armor, oh no, that's just a random encounter looks exactly like it up above. Never mind.
that is. Oh, you're right. Yes, I always forget about that guy. You rarely see him.
Yeah. By the time you can actually find him in the game, pretty much everybody who you will watch stream this has the Moogle charm, so they just don't find him.
Exactly. There's a whole bunch of late game enemies I'm pretty ignorant on for that exact reason, because in vanilla, getting Mog and Moogle charms my first World of Ruin priority.
Yep, that is the first thing you do as soon as you can. I believe... Oh, no. Can't check. Oh well. However, because as we mentioned it is a late game enemy, it's worth a hefty chunk of experience, and that was about 6.5k for all of Sid's people, and he is not terribly high level, so that's going to be a lot of levels.
Exactly. Jax gets through Kefka easily and takes advantage of the free heal here. Something important to route in sometimes, especially if something like sleeping bags are a little harder to find. And while I've not been paying too much attention to the exact items people have been picking up, sometimes that can be difficult with, especially if shops are set to random tiered. Sleeping bags and Phoenix Downs can be a little harder to come by, and so you have to know where those heals are sometimes.
Now, is Dullahan the monster that you find in Setzer's tomb, Daryl's tomb? Is he actually weak against Pearl or not?
I believe he absorbs Pearl, but I have the guide up in a second. I can pop up. But he is weak to fire, though.
Yeah, he looks undead, he acts undead, but that one I'm thinking is different for some odd reason.
Nothing with Pearl, actually. I mean, he can take the damage, but he does not absorb it or weak from it. It's just a thing. But sometimes it's hard to memorize all of these, and you try to remember based on the sprites, kind of what makes logical sense, and that's when I always sometimes get mixed up and think that Pearl is something he's weak to, as well.
Ooh, Jexfrock may be going for some Meriton strats if he actually finds the spell, because he just bought 2 Flame Shields.
You know, it could be that Flame Shields are just always a good investment. They teach Fire too if you're a little, harder on magic. But, worst case, they're a great thing to levy at Kefka to get over that last little bit of damage. They're rather expensive, but buying them in mass if you have the money is definitely a good strategy sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I know there's one flag that makes it so that all the priceless quote items are actually, 1 or 2 gold pieces in the shop. And I just remember running in after fighting one encounter and buying 99 mega elixirs. It was wonderful. I loved it.
Hold on a second. We might have some technical difficulties. I'll be back in 1 second.
Yeah, it looks like the stream is having a little bit of issue,
Yes.
but that's okay. In the meantime, we do see that Zelfer is fighting one of the 3 god statues, which is one of the latest game bosses in the game, obviously. They have a few odd weaknesses, though. One of them, for example, is not immune to the stop spell, so that's a really, really weird thing that is not normally encountered in almost any boss in the game. Stream seems to be back up perfectly fine again.
Yes, we might be hitting the limits of my internet. We'll see, but so I apologize for some of the hiccups. Hopefully, we will have a steady stream going forward.
Well, it has been pretty good for the past 30 or so minutes, so as far as ratios go, that's pretty good.
Mr. Entity here is electing to go with one of the floating continent save points, something you don't always see because it's a little bit out of the way, but it's important to remember it's there, for cases where, you maybe aren't 100% sure you can just plow through any random unknown boss, because it is quite a hike back here if you can.
It is incredibly terrible if you have to redo this, yeah. And I have definitely seen, not this fight, but the next one end up being Magimaster, and oh my goodness, the runners were not happy that day.
Yes, it's mostly for the third fight in particular that you don't want to walk back, especially if you're really needing a character or something and you really need that last check. Speaking of characters, now may be a good time to mention this, since we're a little character heavy in this race, about our statue skip that we have.
Oh, I don't actually know the particular numbers on this one, do you?
Yes, it is. So you can see in our requirements that our runners need 12 espers and 5 characters to get to Kefka's Tower. However, if they end up with 9 characters instead of 5, they can skip the entire first section of Kefka's Tower and start right where the 3 switches are, right before the last 4 bosses. And, this might not come up too often, but, Zelfer is 2 characters away and Jek is 1 character away from it, because this has been a very character-heavy seed at the moment. And so we might see some, if not all of our runners, be able to skip the first part of Kefka's Tower.
Yeah, it's not something you always end up running into, but when we actually have those flags available, it is really nice if you have a incredibly weighted toward one side seed, so you can just, skip good 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, and really for races makes this exciting, because you never know when someone can make a comeback. I was doing a race earlier today, and my opponent, beat me by a minute and a half, but they got the skip and I didn't. And of course, it meant they got through more checks than I did, and that's why they had those characters, that character advantage. But that was obviously a big thing for them. And the other thing too with the character skip, the statue skip, is that it also lets you potentially warp out with some of the bosses at the end. That if you run into a problematic boss like a Magimaster, you don't need to warp out and truck through the entire tower. You can reposition your party a lot quicker.
Yeah. And that's a huge deal in some cases, because there are a few bosses that are pains in the butt no matter when you fight them, and when you have to split up your party, sometimes the person you need is over there.
And even bosses that don't seem like they'd be that much of a problem, such as Tentacles, become a huge problem when you just are running less, characters.
Yeah. And looks like Zelfer has actually found himself an Esper inside the auction house, which is technically, on average, a very quick check, but sometimes it's not.
Well, Zelfer is known in the community for what's called Zelfer luck, which is exactly this. Just always getting the Espers at the very first shot at the auction house. You know, some people
Well,
might take 5 or 10 minutes. He will always grab his Esper or 2 immediately. It is one of his magic powers that he has.
Well, that is a pretty fantastic magic power. It didn't quite work out. There was one cape before the Esper, but you know, one dud check. That's fine.
I mean, he's probably not too upset about that. You know, also knowing there's only one there is good too, because you don't want to be depending on 2 Espers at the end of end of the game and only find that you have to auction house didn't happen. You have to go someplace else.
And just like that, Jexfrock has done 1/3 of the battles that are required to break that cursed shield.
I believe.
Man.
So,
Italian knife.
who has uncursed the curse shield at this point? I believe Sid and Mr. Entity have maybe.
I believe Mr. Entity has. That's the only one I'm pretty sure of. Mr. Entity actually has a very narrow lead now that I'm actually looking at it, because Jexfrock has 9 character / Esper checks, and he's only at 10, so this is actually really close, especially because Zelfer is actually at the same. Sid's a little bit behind, but I believe he might be doing better in levels, so still really close between all the racers.
That is true, and you know we haven't even seen some checks such as Cyan's Dream yet, which should also you know, maybe produce some Espers very quick.
I think Sid might have been listening to you, because he just landed right next to that castle.
We're in sync apparently. Cyan's Dream is one of my favorite checks in the game. You know, you can knock out 3 quick checks for only 2. For only 2 bosses, and you know, 1 is guaranteed either a character or an Esper, so you're guaranteed some progress even if the other 2 are dead checks.
Now, is there a list somewhere of what is a guaranteed check for characters or Espers? Because I know that it is the case, but I do not remember what they are, ever.
Yeah, I mean, we have them all on our wiki page at wiki.ff6wc.com. There's a section for checks, and for each check will break down what you potentially can get there, because you're right, some checks don't have characters in it. You know, for Cyan's Dream, for instance, this first check and then the one on the throne afterwards can not be a character.
And it is a Magimaster.
Yeah. Oof. Well, luckily, you know, I believe he has throw with him, and that should make this a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah. Because his physical defense is absolutely ludicrous, but if you're throwing stuff, it tends to not care.
Yes, the big trick with him is that most magic in the game is elemental, and after every attack, he can change what element he is immune to, and it becomes a guessing game without scan. With that, unless you have tools like Pummel or Throw that can ignore defense.
Just saw him throw that gravity rod dealing 0 damage, which means he was, you know, 100% resistant to gravity at the time. Ugh, and the bolt cured him.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough fight for Sid, whereas Zelfer gets his nicer cousin, number 24.
Yeah, there's actually no sprite difference. Oh, wait, is there? Oh, yeah, I guess he is a little bit darker, isn't he?
Yeah, slightly off-colored sprite, but otherwise, very different fights.
Yeah. The first one, you just sort of punch until it dies, whereas that is not the case with the Magimaster.
Right. And on top of it, Magimaster has, like you said, absurd defense and absurd evasion, too. Regular fight commands, you know, will whiff more often than not against him, which can make him a tough enemy to crack.
Now, it looks like Sid did not grab the Bum Rush, which would be doing him so much work right now.
Yes, and so we'll see with our other runners who have Bum Rush whether or not they, you know, it comes in handy there. But Bum Rush is definitely something you would want in this fight if you happen to get it.
Now, Magimaster does have one actual weakness. He doesn't have nearly as much life as many of the other endgame bosses because he's in the Magic Tower, and the devs actually knew he was super annoying, so his hit point pool is not nearly as large.
His biggest weakness, though, is he is weak to the spell Berserk, which will neutralize him completely and only let him do magic attacks, and more importantly, he will not switch his element defenses in between attacks if you Berserk him. I don't believe any of our runners have Berserk, but when running, if you see Berserk, you typically want to teach it to one person, just in case you run into a Magic Master, because it makes the fight go from one of the hardest in the game to pretty trivial.
Oh. Now we see an entirely different idea on Cid. He has thrown the Valiant Knife onto Mr. Thou. The evasion is still unfortunately coming into play, but the Valiant Knife just ignores everything in the world, so he is chopping through the boss's hit points with, an actual strategy at this point. Yep, there's another 2K.
Zelfer has encountered Air Force with all the lightning they have available to him. He should go down within a few seconds, I would imagine.
Yeah, he is super weak to lightning.
Yep.
Oh, look, there's actually a squid on the water. That's weird. Now, it looks like Cyan from Cid actually is resisting basically all of the elements, but they're doing 0 rather than healing him, so do you think he's wearing a Minerva or something like that?
On Cid, it could be that Paladin Shield that he has. Paladin Shield does let you absorb 4 of the 4 main elements.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, let's find out. 0 damage, not a Paladin Shield.
Yes, but Jack he's going down Barren Falls, which gives him a full heal, and he is fighting Ultras 3, I believe. Ultras, who I spotted on cable TV last night. He made a cameo in a wrestling show.
What?
Yeah, there's a whole thing with JRPGs and wrestling fans and signs, and someone had a sign of Ultros saying "Muscleheads hate him," and caught that on TV last night. So it's fun to see your favorite niche game make an appearance on live TV.
Nice. All right, so let's see what Jex Frog gets for beating up a squid. He gets a Yeti.
Well, that puts him. He was already at 9 anyway, so that unfortunately doesn't get him that much. It does give him a snow muffler, which is a pretty good end game item. But otherwise, after 9 characters, you're just kind of cursing the fact that it's not another Magicite.
Yeah. The nice thing about him, though, is if you go to the World of Ruin and then you go to Narshe, it's actually incredibly dense as far as Jex is concerned if you have him as well. Just because that way you can get the Tritalk as well as going down the hole behind him. But you need the Yeti for that.
Yes, and like that's honestly, I like that check a lot. I'm a big fan of the dragon up at Tritalk because I really like fighting dragons. It's just, you're right, it's a nice little easy bow, especially if you're trying to grab the last Magicite or two. Because in this case, Tritalk can't be a character and you don't want any characters. So Tritalk becomes a lot more of an interesting check at this point when you're just looking for Magicite.
Mm-hmm. And Cid is still fighting this Magimaster. Looks like he raised Setzer just so he could get some consistent DPS from the pummels, because Cyan just missed like 7 or 8 times in a row. I really, really hope he beats up this boss, because this is a huge time sink if he has to do it again for some reason.
I am too. I'm hoping everyone at home is just rooting for Cid here, because no one likes Magimaster. I'm sure we all wish he could just be patched out of the game. And so if he can overcome them, like, we shouldn't be rooting for anyone, but I'm rooting for him to get by this fight.
Yeah. The one thing you do have to remember, though, is if you find something, the other runners are on the same seed as you, so don't worry too much about it, because they do have to do that check as well.
It's always the silver lining of, this sucked, but it should suck for everyone else, too.
Yes. And because it's Cyan's dream, it is very likely they're going to do that, because it's a pretty... Oh, gosh, that was a limit break.
Yes, you do see desperation moves every once in a while, and you can't depend on them, but they can be really great when they show up. Lots of damage.
Yeah, that was about twice as much as the Valiant Knife is doing, so that's a pretty big deal. And because of his aforementioned lower hit point pool, he's probably pretty close to dead now.
Yes, and over in Zelfer's screen, he's fighting the Dream Stooges, and he is attempting to X-Zone them. Like I said, the leftmost Stooge can be instant killed, but he still has evasion, and so you still have to deal with X-Zone's,
There he goes.
His natural accuracy issue.
Yes. Thankfully, they understood that death attacks probably shouldn't hit all the time, so...
Yeah,
They're
so
not the most accurate.
I did find out last night while watching Javinator's stream that this fight is weird with it, where if you X zone him, he's still a valid target. You just can't hit him, which makes stuff like Bum Rush kind of a pain because it can target the now dead, Mo or whatever, stooge that is. It's very weird in this fight in particular.
This game just has so many idiosyncrasies like that.
It's one of the buggiest games that people aren't aware is buggy.
Yeah, like everything, like if you're not paying that much attention, looks like it is working perfectly fine. Until you actually look at what it's supposed to be doing, you're like, oh crap, that is way different.
Jack is taking a dragon. I believe this is the first dragon we've seen someone go up against.
I think you're right.
And I personally like dragons a lot. They give a whole bunch of experience, and they give 50 magic points, which, unless a spell is at a ×1 rate, will teach anyone any given spell. And they always drop a high tier item. Never a Esper or a character, so they don't count as checks, but they will drop high tier items. So one dragon can be enough to give you a whole bunch of experience and maybe that offensive item that really just changes the entire party structure.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of having the experience, I believe Jexfrock may actually be the highest character level among our racers right now. So this would just sort of put him even further ahead if that's the case.
Yes, and that's due to all the extra battles he took at the beginning, especially at Doma Castle. A good strategy that kind of helped you snowball through the rest of the checks. Obviously, a little risky because you're not going for progress, but if done correctly in a good way, it really could be the thing that gives you an edge.
Yeah, it's a little scary to try because you don't know what fights you'll be getting. You'll just end up fighting some, like, leafers or something terrible experience-wise. You're like, well, okay, I guess I just wasted a minute.
Right, and that's why stuff like the Doma Castle or Imperial Camp, like I mentioned earlier, taking fights there, like you mentioned, if it's a good fight, you can abuse it by keep doing it over and over again that you might not be able to do in a fixed encounter area.
Yep. We actually do see a World of Ruin Narsh check here. Looks like we found Welk, who's just a little bit off of where he should be. But he's here because he got his Yeti, and he can do the other check.
I feel like this is the third time this week I've seen Welk at this check. He really likes the snowy mountains, apparently.
He's a giant snail. That doesn't fit at all. Never mind.
It looks like Mr. NT is also going for flame shields at World of Ruin Albrook. So you could see a lot of really powerful Fire 3s being broken out in some of these late game boss fights.
On the lower right, just a second ago, Zelfer grabbed one of the buried checks, which is something I didn't know until maybe a few months ago. There are several invisible spots in the game where if you hit the confirm button, the characters are like, oh, okay, then they grab whatever item's actually hiding out there. That one was a water skein, which normally you don't bother grabbing, but because they actually have the throw command, you decided it was worth a second or two.
Yeah, and it's good to point that out for our viewers, because I only found that out about 3 weeks ago myself. And like we said before, there's a lot of intricacies about this game, and just if it's the speedrunning this interests you and you want to improve, watching these streams and finding these weird things like that and keep them in mind really can be sometimes the thing that really just breaks a scene for you.
Selling some force shields, some dice. Looks like he really wants that experience egg. Oh, 2 experience eggs, and who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, it is an hour in. Experience eggs lose their luster a tiny bit, but with the amount of dragons that are still out there, it really could you could have a broken character at the end.
Like he actually bought a 3rd one. He is going all in on the eggs. Just gonna scramble all the enemies.
Meanwhile, Sid is still whacking away at that Magic Master. He is.
Oh my gosh, I have been there and it feels so bad.
He is putting on a clinic when it comes to kind of this technical balancing of different game knowledge here.
Oh no, hopefully he has the ability to get her back, because normally she's wearing a memento ring, just sort of standard. And I saw her block a Doom attack earlier, so I thought she had it on, so... Ooh.
If not, hopefully he is a little bit lower on health. But yes, we're gonna see Zelfer be going up to where Czech is, just in a different world, by doing the the Lone Wolf check, along with Kefka at Narsh, two checks that independently are not great and some of the worst checks in the game, but together, when you can do them at the same time, become a slightly below average set of checks to do. They're still not pleasant, but they are two at the same time.
All right, so we found Fenrir, which is actually one of the really important possible espers for the end of the game because it can help you avoid calmness.
Yes, Tier 3 Kefka will always end with either one calmness and a 33% chance of a second one, which is a instant death attack that cannot be blocked by memento rings or safety bits.
No, Sid, no.
So our runners need to, as they're playing, come up with creative ways to deal with that calmness since they know it's going to be happening. And that is rough for Sid. Sorry, my stream seems to be... despite the fact that I'm restreaming it, what I'm watching seems to be a second or two behind my co-host here.
I've seen sometimes when the commentary is like 5 or 10 seconds behind, and it just ends up looking a little silly. But is the Senor Behemoth not immune to X Zone?
The first one is not, and I believe that's a thing in the main game. But the second one you can't. I think it's how it is. I don't know. I've not done a lot of... It's a weird fight. I remember there's some weird properties involving instant death with it because it has the second Behemoth fight afterwards. There's some weird properties to it.
He just tried to X-Zone him, it didn't work, and I'm pretty sure this is the second one, so...
It looks like Sid is doing his rematch against Atma, who he attempted to fight before, and when it was much lower level and it was a little more challenging, but I think at this point he has more than enough offense to be able to take Atma out.
Yeah. Funny thing about this game, the damage that you do just scales so fast that in many cases it's a lot easier just to nuke everything down rather than try and keep all your people up. I got a Badoop. Alright, so we see that Atma actually has access to some of the really annoying spells in the game, like Quake, which he hurt most of Sid's people with, but actually managed to heal himself, so hopefully he doesn't spam that too terribly much. Oh, and now we see Jexrock is actually going towards Science Dream, so he too is going to find the Magimaster. Hopefully it won't be quite as bad for him. It's never... You never want people to be in that position. It's not fun. And as we were saying earlier, the Tritalk on Mr. Entity Scream is just being ridiculously pummeled by all of these non-elemental attacks, making it look like he actually doesn't have any resistance whatsoever. Alright, let's see how Jexrock, gosh, I hope I'm saying his name right, deals with him. Oh, he has shurikens. Yep, okay, that fight's not gonna last terribly long. It's so sad how just having one item that the other runner did not is going to completely change the entire face of this fight. Oh, he has Bum Rush as well. So I'm guessing this is probably done in about 2 rounds for him. Ooh. And Mr. Entity is now displaying one of the most annoying attacks in the game where they can just freeze your characters. There is, as far as I'm aware, no way to actually stop that. I don't think the ribbon actually blocked that particular status effect. Sid has finally picked up Locke, so that means he will have only 5 characters actually, so he's not incredibly overflowing with them, which means that he probably will not be able to go through the skipping of Kefka's tower as quickly as the others, but if he finds a whole bunch of Espers, whereas they may not, that means that he may actually catch up to them, as we were saying earlier. Oh, there are those shurikens, so if he wants to go back and fight Magimaster now, he can, but do you really want to fight Magimaster? Nobody does.
Well, with Throw, like we're seeing on Jex's screen, I would go back at this point. Shurikens just tear through him so easily because of how they ignore defense. Throw is one of the few abilities that you really want to have against Magimaster because you can just, Jex should be done with him in a second. It's just that much of a difference.
He's just been nuking this poor... Oh, there he goes, yeah.
one of the advantages of fighting Magic Master, as horrible as he is that he does drop a Mega Elixir, something that you always want in your back pocket going into Tier 4 Kefka to easily bounce back from a fallen one.
It is a big deal in that final fight. You can, of course, get around it if you have like some real nice cures going around, but it's just so much easier to have just a full heal.
Yes, and healing can be really rough in Worlds Collide. There are not nearly as many healing spells as offensive spells, and certain healing, such as potions and cure, are so low power after the first levels that you sometimes have to kind of be creative with your curing. And so timing a Mega Elixir just the right time in the final Kefka battle is a huge it's a huge benefit if you can do it correctly.
And in one of the races in which I actually did okay, there were no healing spells through the entire seed except for one character who had health, and I just happened to find early, so that was super lucky.
Yeah, for the most part, I find that healing is not too important, except for the final Kefka battle, because it's 4 long boss fights in a row. And a lot of times you kind of have to make do with maybe a few X potions and elixirs you found, and just gotta, be very, very aware of what your HP is and what you can heal up to.
Yeah, one thing I mentioned earlier was that the offense in this game scales way faster than, the defense or the healing, so usually nuking it down is the best choice.
Yes. And it's also why stuff like elemental immunities and absorptions are very important, because the more attacks I can do 0, especially for Final Kefka, the less healing you have to do.
Yeah. He is packing a couple of the non-elemental attacks, though, so you can't just rely on them exclusively to save you.
Sid found a Magus Rod in Daryl's tomb. He is electing to finish off number 24 to collect this rod, even if this isn't for progress. Probably a decent call, considering that number 24 is not a particularly worrisome boss. That it's by the time you reset, you might as well get the +7 magic Magus Rod. To me.
Chat does wish to correct one thing we said. The second form of Senior Behemoth can be instantly killed, but the first cannot.
Yes, thank you for the clarification on that. Like I said, it's a weird fight, and there are a lot of things weird with IDs, so thank you for correcting us. We were obviously ill-informed.
And now we also see Jex has found Haydn and the Haydnites.
My favorite boy band.
I think it's everyone's favorite boy band. Thank you.
It's bottom left High Knight is obviously the breakout star with his fire immunity. He's gonna have a great solo career at some point.
It's really funny that in most fights that wouldn't even come up, but because everybody else is undead, it comes up a lot.
Yeah, I remember growing up using Murtrin here a lot, and that coming up consistently. But it's actually kind of important for something like Murtrin that one absorbs fire, because Haydn will kick off Grand Train if all the High Knights are dead. So one absorbing fire means you can blast all with a fire attack and will avoid that situation.
If you don't want to teach Strago Grand Train, of course.
That's true. Yes, of course. And with Scale Element on, it's not guaranteed Haydn actually will cast Grand Train. He might cast Diffuser instead if you're not high enough level. So it's a little harder in Worlds Collide to teach Strago Grand Train naturally for that reason.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Grand Train is actually a mistranslation. It was supposed to be Grand Trine?
Yes, I think it was something like that. I'm trying to remember what Final Fantasy. There's a few other Final Fantasies where either Grand Trine or Trine also appeared, and that was the correct translations, but I don't remember fully. But it is mistranslation, obviously, because it has nothing to do with trains or tracks or steam engines or anything else locomotive based.
Apparently, according to chat, it was actually a mistranslation of dark matter. So, that's nothing like what it actually says.
See, stuff like that is why it's hard for me to play the Game Boy Advance version, which has all the correct translations, but I know all the wrong, incorrect ones, and I care about those more because I grew up with those.
They make me feel good on the inside. Like, I don't want to call them water scrolls. That doesn't make me happy.
When I started getting back into Worlds Collide, I tried to get my wife into it, and she was going to pick up the Game Boy Advance version. And she's like, "Is it good?" And I'm like, "It probably is, but I can't ever play it. I know what everything's called now, and I would honestly confuse myself knowing that an offering is really a Master Scroll or whatever it is. It's it is the better translation, but it's not what I'm used to."
Yeah, I mean they have that final dungeon in there, which is kind of nice, but not hard enough to actually test your characters.
Right. But this game is great no matter what version you play. And
oh gosh, yes, it is literally my favorite.
yes, and they will be having the new one coming out, I think, early next year, the second half of the Pixel Remaster. So I'm sure a lot of people here will give those a shot and see how they stack up to the originals.
That sounds like something I would absolutely do. Yeah.
Looks like Sid found a cat hood up in Mountain Zozo at that dragon.
Okay.
Which typically you want to find it a little bit early. Not that he could obviously control when he gets it, but it gives 25% more gold. So, it might be a difference between him getting another item or so from a vendor.
Oh, it's only 25%?
I think it's 25%. It's either 25 or 50.
That's bad.
But it's definitely an increase, and getting for free from a dragon is a lot better than buying it in a shop for sure.
Oh yeah, it hurts to buy in a shop because the game knows it's expensive. Now, I can agree with Itsunaku in the chat, Woolsey or Bust. For those who don't know, this is the Woolsey translation, the Super Nintendo one.
Woolsey, who had quite a heck of a time translating it too, because I believe he was given the script with only a few months' notice and no associated game to go off of, and that was kind of typical for all of his Square translations, which is why sometimes things don't make sense because he doesn't have the script or the sprites, that associate with it. He had to make a lot of liberties in some ways.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
But it's also why you get some fun things like Economizer, which does exactly what you would think it would. It makes spells more economically sound.
Much more economical.
It's one of my favorite translations in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sid at this point is just tearing through Zozo because he has the Y to remove NPCs, so there are just like 3 or 4 in the way that he just slapped out of existence.
Oh, I totally forgot you could do that there. That is a smart move. Y NPC is something you can be very creative and do some really cool things that you might not think of. And it's something that I hope gets put more into more standard runs coming soon, even if it can be destructive at times.
Unless I'm mistaken. Oh gosh, apparently you can also just remove the boss there. That's neat.
Yes, you can. Of course, you miss out on all the experience. But at this point, it's probably not that important. You just want to get the check.
Ooh, it's an offering. That could be fantastic. Depends on what he wants to do, really.
Well, he does have Valiant Knives, so...
Oh, never mind. It's just plain fantastic.
Yes, as long as he can set himself up correctly, he has a lot of different options here. Meanwhile, Zelfer is doing Serpent's Trench. Good. The fixed encounters are not that great this late because it is a little bit of an auto scroller, but overall not that not that slow. It's not that slow to check. Like there are slower ones out there, and being very close to the Velt where he was, he kind of just knocked 2 off real quick since he is there's not that many checks left, and he still has to get 7 more Espers.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, it does look like the one encounter that I did end up seeing there is actually just really bad as far as, like, experience goes, but, at least he goes through it fast.
Yeah, if I start with Gao, I like Serpent's Trench a lot. If you get him later, it feels a little bit like a drag, but luckily not that long of one compared to something like Burning House.
Yeah, or the Lit River. There are so many fights there.
Yes, Lit River is, I think, my least favorite check, or very high up there.
Ooh, it's definitely Burning House for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bad checks in the game. I think we all have some of our least favorite, and there's a good argument to make for all of them. Whereas Jack is at the basement of Jador at the moment, fighting Doom, which I believe Zelfer was at a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I know at least one of the other people has managed to fight that.
And Doom is not too hard. It's it's not as bad as Goddess, but I think at this point our runners have the tools that even someone, as hard as Doom will go down pretty easy. Our runners are in very good shape at the moment.
Now, it looks like he's actually packing a gem box on Realm at the moment.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I'm personally not the biggest fan of gem box because it doesn't really save a lot of time. It's still the same animation cast as if you cast the spells twice. But it can have a lot of advantages, especially skipping, say, Goner or, dealing with Sleep's Tier 2 and stuff like that. It definitely has, some good moments to it.
Mm-hmm. There we go. And as we were just saying, Doom has now been doomed.
Yes, and it looks like, at this point, a lot of our runners are retreading checks their other opponents have already gone through.
Yeah.
And so, Mr. Entity is now going to Mountain Zozo, just like Sid and Zelfer did. Zelfer is going to be doing Floating Continent now, it looks like, which we've already seen Mr. Entity go through. So we're going to be closely getting to a point where a lot of these runners, their counts are going to get a lot closer together. I think this is a lot closer of a race than the tickers might show at this exact moment.
I am not quite sure when it happened, but Jaxrock actually did manage to pull ahead of Mr. Entity as far as the number of, I don't want to call them checks, but the number of characters in Espers is concerned. It looks like he's trying to pull a Zelfer now and hopefully buy himself an Esper.
We'll see if he gets the same amount of luck. We know there's only one Esper in there, which means the other four slots, I believe, are items, so it does make the Esper less likely to come up. Yeah.
It looks... I have a question. Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea what happens if you have your Y to destroy on when you are inside the auction house? Can you destroy the other people who are there? Will that just soft lock the game?
I don't know what happens if you destroy the other people, but I would imagine that for people who are supposed to buy it, it probably would soft lock because they would have animations. I do know that if you don't want to destroy the guy at the door, or else you will not be able to enter the auction.
Yeah, that one's thankfully pretty obvious. But oh yes, he actually did get the same amount of luck as Zelfer did because he found on the second try.
Nice.
I'm having a bit of freezing issue on the stream. Is that a universal thing going on?
Yeah, it looks like it's on my end too. I have the stream up on an iPad. So give it a minute. Nothing's changed on the streaming box's side, so it just could be a little bit of blips.
Well, it looks like since the last update we had that Jaxrock has purchased the Esper and is probably now determining that there is no second one because thankfully there is a hint at the door, which is just such a fantastic quality of life update. Saving a little bit. Fortunately, there is not terribly much going on at the moment. I believe it was a red cap where Mr. Entity currently is, so that's not going to give him terribly much because he's past the point in the game where he's going to be dying to most checks, and I mean, it's going to help him, it's not going to hurt in any way, but it's not an Esper like he was looking for. We have Zelfer beating up Kefka. Unfortunately, due to the current problems, it looks like he may have beaten... Yeah, he's probably beaten him by now. We got a Toilet Atma being fought by Jaxrock. And again, he's doing quite well as far as experience and levels go. He should not be having much of an issue beating that up in particular. Sid just finishing off Punbaba, and I don't remember who he's Dullahan, that's right. He has to start every single fight with the questionably leveled Pearl. Which I believe is actually based on the last digit of your gold, so it really is a question mark on the level of that Pearl.
Yes, it is the last digit of your gold. It's a very weird spell. One that it's very impossible to actually, for a human to use effectively. Looks like we are back. I apologize. There's nothing going on my end. Looks like just sometimes my internet decides it can't take it for a minute or so. So
Tragic.
yeah. So, but looks like we're back now. Hopefully, this is the last time that happens. But yeah, it looks like Mr. NT is now taking out the Setzer's Atma, which at this point should be a very quick fight for all of our runners.
Yeah. There are very few fights left that will not be quick fights for all of our runners.
I don't think there will be a lot of trouble with any fights until we get the Kefka Sour, and some of these, fights are going to be at, will be less than 40 party members. But even then, right now, Jack and Zelfer both have the statue skip ready to go. With Mr. NT and Sid not that far behind, and very possible for them to stumble into it since we need only 9 characters to skip the first half of Kefka's Tower.
Mm-hmm. And Jax is now showing off how fast this run can be if you say, I don't actually care about treasure chests.
There comes a point where if you think if you can't think of a lot more equipment you need that you would be happy with, why bother shopping for chests? Do you like your armor and you like your weapons? If there's not a lot you absolutely need, it is not worth the time to grab a bunch of chests just because one of them might have an elixir or something in it.
Yeah, because even if you have to take 0 extra steps off of your path, it's still about a 3-second thing or so.
Right, and then the time it takes to open the text box and close the text box, it adds up. Might not seem like a lot, but come Kefka's Tower, if you grab every chest in there that's on your way, that probably saves you close to a minute, if not more, if you don't get them.
And I believe you said the last race you were in was won by, what, a minute and 10 seconds or so?
Yeah, it was a fun race I did this afternoon with someone's a minute in 10 seconds. But even the weekly ladders we do, I beat someone this week by 3 seconds, as an example. And so every second does matter. And we've had tournament matches that have been decided also by a handful of seconds, and you just never know. And all of our runners, they're doing small things every once in a while to really optimize different little time saves.
Yeah, menuing is something that's really important for high-level speedruns in, pretty much every instance, but it's not a particularly flashy skill that a lot of people tend to try to improve upon.
I know for me, it's my biggest, the biggest thing I need to work on, and I constantly have to fight, and it's, and you don't even realize it until you really start breaking it down what you're doing when, and that's why a lot of our runners, you'll notice they only go to the menus during certain times. It's typically, if you have to save, that's a great time to then equip stuff. It's not worth it to stop and equip whenever you get an item. And they're trying to minimize how many times they open the menu and maximize efficiency. And there's not a hard and fast rule, and it's just something that they've all gotten really good at as they practice more.
It looks like Jax Frock is actually entering Kefka's Tower at this point. Yep, there he goes.
Yep.
Now he, I believe actually you mentioned, he went to the skip. He has enough characters. So this is definitely go mode for him. He's at this point just trying to beat up the last few bosses as quickly as he can to reach Kefka. Yeah, that is not to say the game is anywhere near decided yet, because Kefka can just kind of murder you sometimes.
Yeah, it's luckily, some of these bosses he could run into could be, difficult. We already have Magic Master and Doomgaze out of the rotation, but there are some that could be a little, more problematic. But the nice thing is that if he runs into them, since he has the statue skip, if he warp stones out and comes back in, he'll be right back here anyway. He doesn't have to go through the entire dungeon. And so, even where things are problematic, he can do a lot. He can very easily bail and rearrange, which you don't normally have that option with a normal Kefka's Tower.
Now, this is a strangely, as far as the World of Balance bosses go, it's a little bit difficult just because he has so many hit points.
Right, because he was never meant to be killed by normal hit points. Both him and Welk have surprisingly high amount of hit points for what they are.
Yeah. So it's not likely to kill him, but it will slow him down a bit.
Yes, but it'll slow everyone down. Everyone will be going through this.
Yep. There's that silver lining we were talking about. Looks like Sid is actually taking some encounters up in the floating continent.
I was not looking at the screen. Is he in the middle of the escape, or...
Oh, yeah, I think he's in the middle of escape, you're right. Yeah, sorry, that's a fixed encounter. Everyone's going to run into that.
Yeah, there are 2 fixed encounters with a 3rd optional fixed encounter on the escape that you have to do.
Now, does the pummel kill still work in Worlds Collide?
Yep. Both Pummel works on Vargas to instant kill him, and Sketch works on Ultras 3 also to instantly end the boss fight as well. Nice. In the Sketch case with Ultras, you don't get the experience you would get if you kill him outright, but Ultras also has a lot more HP than you would think for that battle. And it can end it early as well. I don't know if Jack knows that or remembers it, but yes, it would instantly end the Vargas fight.
Yeah, he's in a bit of trouble actually, because that's his main DPS right there. And because physical scales a lot better for the monsters than it did originally in the game, so he's actually gonna be throwing around some pretty hefty whacks. So he's almost gonna be death cycling unless he can throw, say, X potion at him or something like that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think if you can get rid of the other bear, that'll make it a lot more manageable as well. Just one less thing of physical attacks going at him. But this limited healing is starting to kind of creep up a little bit on him.
Oh, this is the worst time to just have a really strangely hard time fighting. He just, I believe he missed a blitz input as well, which is gonna... Blitz might be a good choice, yeah. Okay, so he should be fine. He has enough of a hit point buffer that shouldn't happen again.
Right, but using an elixir in a fight like this, when you would like to save it for the final Kefka, that is, definitely a hit to your strategy.
Yes, it is. Especially if, did Jax Rock get the Mega Elixir or not? Do you remember?
He killed Magic Master, yes, so he does have the Mega Elixir.
Okay, well, at least he has that then.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, everyone else is just struggling so hard to find these Espers.
Yeah. Jack was the only one who actually successfully killed Magic Master. The other, Sid bailed out, and the other 2 have not gone to Science Stream.
That is probably where most of the Espers came from then, because that is a lot of checks right in a row, many of which can be Espers.
It was 3 Espers in Science Stream. So yes, that was a big swing in Jack's favor. And we'll see if someone like Zelfer decides to go that route. Zelfer, who has been flooded with the entire cast, he has a curtain call of characters over here at 13. I feel like that kind of snuck up on me a bit. I knew he had a few. I didn't realize he had all of them.
He doesn't have Edgar yet.
That is true.
I don't think anyone has Edgar, do they? No, they don't.
Nope. So we know that Edgar will not be at the Magic Factory, because that is a choice that Zelfer is going to have to make. That, like we said, the 3rd check in the Magic facility can have a character, but it is tied behind a long auto-scroller. He will most likely warp out, but we'll see with him knowing that it will most likely be an Esper, because the odds of being a character are very low. Maybe he will elect to do the train ride. We'll see in a minute.
It looks like the final Magitech Factory was actually Zone Seek, so it was not a character this time.
Yes.
I don't know, Edgar's probably hiding out in the burning house or something. The check that nobody wants.
Fanatic Tower, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's another bad one. It's all on Strago.
Yep. Blame everything on Strago sounds good. And Jack easily cuts through the Crane brothers, Niles and Fraser, leaving only 2 more bosses left, I believe, before Kefka.
Well, I don't think Goddess has shown up yet, so that one may end up being a sticking point for him, but it's not likely at this point.
No, nope. We'll see. We'll see in a minute. Mr. Entity is.
Oh, never mind. Goddess is actually in the Velt Cave.
Oh yes, yes. You are like a second ahead of me, I guess. Yeah. Can't speak for a second. Mr. Entity decided to go to the Shadow Check at Cave of the Velt. Very quick and easy dungeon. That also lets you peek. It's one of the few that lets you see whether something is an item or an Esper differentiator. But Goddess is a very tough fight. With the tools they have, it should be completely doable, but you never like seeing her. She can be mean. She can have a lot of HP. She has some nasty tricks.
Although, actually, he's hitting her for 10k, you know, with multiple characters. I don't think she's going to last terribly long.
No. She's one of my least favorite to see early, so seeing her late, you feel really good about that.
Oh, hey, there's a spicy chicken as one of the last bosses.
Yep. I don't know if that was quite the vanilla spot, but if not, it was French vanilla adjacent. You know, one of the other goddess statues.
Yeah.
Sid finding Gao at Kefka and Narsh and deciding to nope out of there.
Yeah, nobody wants characters anymore.
No. Though, Oh, it looks like he's at 9 characters. Okay. The tracker was a little bit slow on that. So, yeah, at 9, you don't want to take Gao. You know, if you're at 8, you might take him to get the statue skip. But at 9, yeah, you want to get right out of there.
Yeah, he's got 5 Espers left to find. He's probably just relying on the fact he'll get one more character somewhere. Kefka at Narsh is not a particularly fast check. Actually, that's not quite true. It is fast. You just have to wait around for a while. It feels terrible.
Yeah, it's mostly the time up and down, too, combined with it. It's no one's favorite check. You hate when you feel like you're gatekeep there. Sometimes runners, though, will go there early in a race in particular, hoping that opens up a seed and other people waited on it a lot more. So it can be a gamble. It can be a high risk play that can really push you ahead.
Now, if you are racing someone that you know generally does better times than you, it is commonly a good idea to just, like, throw out the random strats, because they're going to do what's best and usually better, but if you can happen to get lucky with something like that, then, you know, it could work out for you, as opposed to just trying to skill v skill them, which you're not going to do great on.
Right. Zelfer is fighting that Atma that I believe everyone now has got.
Yes, I think he's the last one to get it.
Yes, and going to easily just tear through, especially with this Valiant Knife offering combo he's rocking with Realm at the moment.
Looks like Sid is actually going for the chests in the collapsing house. Oh, okay, good. He did not grab the one that will take forever.
You know, that is a interesting thing when you're running, is you know where the monster and the box chests are, and you gotta sometimes decide, you know, do you need an offering or a Minerva, you know, and if not, like, is it worth taking the fights? I typically don't even go for monsters and boxes unless I have a weapon. I think we'll go with offerings because I think that they're not worth the time hit.
Yeah,
and that's one of the many decisions our runners have to make. And there never is a right answer. It really depends on a lot of factors at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, he didn't grab anything particularly worthwhile in there. I think the best thing might have been a beret, which is saying a lot.
There was a Thunder Rod, so that could always
okay.
come up for, you know, if you have to get around a reflect or something.
Do the rods go around reflect?
They do, yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, go around reflect. They also ignore magic defense as well. And they roll the highest variance you could roll on a spell.
Okay.
So they're definitely better than just using the spell outright if you have the rods.
Ooh, cool. Now there is a flag called More Charnook, which means they'll just be in the evil form of the painting more often. It looks like we might not have that on because he actually did throw out an ability before changing.
Yeah, by default with Worlds Collide, that's one of those quality of lives that we have on that Charnook. I think it's like 2 or 3 times less time spent in the woman phase. Sometimes they switch right away, sometimes they get one attack off before switching.
He accidentally threw a heal rod at his face, which hurts him.
Oh, no.
Well, oh. Straco used Possess and instantly killed the Magimaster.
It's a great use of Possess. Possess
That
is
is
it's an ability we don't see a lot in Worlds Collide because a lot of our standard flag sets it's removed. It's interesting here in the Dream because Strago will go back to the airship and will have to be manually re-added to the party later. Which means for the next boss, Zilfer will only have 3 people instead of 4. But honestly, versus an instant kill on a Magimaster, that is a perfectly worthwhile trade-off in my opinion.
I believe Jaxfrock might not have saved after beating those statues.
Oh no.
And then his heal rod to the face might have just cost him. I mean, I might be wrong. He may have just thrown it out to get a better group there, hopefully.
I was looking over at Zelfer's screen and I did not see. We'll see in a second, I guess.
Well, the race is definitely closer if that's the case.
So, real quick though, shout outs to Dozenty, who was also in this race, not featured on the stream, who finished a few minutes ago with a time of 1 hour and 28 minutes, taking first place in tonight's community race. So, good game to Dozenty. GG's in chat for him.
Well, yeah, absolutely GG's to Dozenty. He kind of tends to win most everything.
He is one of our stronger runners and definitely puts on many high level performances. So again, GG's to him. Looks
Absolutely.
like
Well done.
Looks like Jack did save and he did elect to warp out and restructure his party.
Okay, good.
Like I was saying earlier, a great strategy if you happen to have the Kefka the tower skip, the statue skip. Not really as viable an option if you don't have that because the trek through the tower is rather cumbersome.
Real quick to Seacon in chat, just because your wife is pregnant, you're not going to have the dad jokes kick in immediately. Sometimes it takes a while. I'm still working on it myself.
I thought this is something you gain as like a superpower the day your first kid's born.
It is something you gain as a superpower, but sometimes it's a delayed thing, like it comes over time. You have to learn how to use your superpowers through training montages, just like the best of them.
Sid is finally going for that bum rush that our other runners got earlier in the run. So like I said earlier, bum rush, very powerful spell, but tied behind a very long cutscene. It's close to a minute. Great bathroom break time and everything. But very powerful ability. For this flag set, Bum Rush was turned on at the beginning, so you didn't have to wait till you learned every other blitz, which meant that as soon as you have a blitz user, you could go and pick it up. So just a little recap for anyone who wasn't here at the very beginning of the stream.
Sid may not have noticed that particular flag because getting it in the beginning, if you were going to get it at all, it was probably going to save you some time.
I sometimes forget to look at it as well, and that's bit me in the butt before, too.
Yeah.
It is one small flag in a sea of many for something that doesn't come up too often.
Now, one quick thing you may notice runners do is they will actually use the airship and fly closer to the ground, but that's because it makes you land faster. Like, it's easier to control the airship and see where you're going and all that the higher up you are, but whenever you make the airship landing animation, you have to go all the way down and then it'll start the actual landing. So I was noticing Sid being pretty close to the ground for a while there.
Yeah, it is. Airship movement is surprisingly important. There's a lot of optimization with it that can really save, multiple seconds throughout a run. Both that and the quick turning with the L and R buttons and strafing with the Y. There's a lot of tech with it that sometimes gets overlooked. Not flashy to talk about, but sometimes you want to make a little note of how powerful it is.
And if you're doing it saving 3 or so seconds every time you're in the airship, that ends up adding up to maybe 2 or 3 minutes over the course of a run.
Yep. And looks like Jack now is entering our final battle. the 4-tier
Nice.
Kefka fight, the first of our featured runners to make it. So
Hmm.
hopefully this will be a pretty painless fight for him. So yeah, this is exciting.
And we also see that Zelfer is just getting himself into the tower at this point, so he's a little bit behind. But a single wipe could actually put him in front of. Is it Jex Vrock? I do not know what to call this man.
I always say Jex Rock. Jex Rock. I don't know. Let's ask him on his when we interview him after the game. We don't want to
That
make
is a
sure
good
we
point.
mislead
I'm gonna
anyone.
make a note of that. Yeah.
So tier 1 Kefka is probably the simplest of the four. Three pieces to attack. Long arm, short arm, and face. With long arm actually being susceptible to instant death, and you can kill him straight up. And the only other trick to the fight is that you don't want to kill the face last. If you do, he will counter with Quake, which is extremely powerful. And so you typically want to make sure you kill the face first, and then the other two at any whatever your convenience is.
Yeah. And these are just things that are not immediately apparent when you're playing, but if you're seeing somebody do something, you're like, where'd the Quake go? And then. So watching other people can actually really help, just the general knowledge you can have in this game, because there is just so many tidbits.
Yeah, that actually came up in my stream earlier today, that there was someone a bit newer to the game who did not know the Quake thing. And that's why I always tell people when watching streams, if you can, ask questions. We're a very friendly community. We want to, there's a lot of weird information like this. If, ask these questions, because, we want to share these tidbits. Sometimes we just assume everyone knows small things like that.
But again, there's so many of them, they probably don't.
Yes. And Jack easily moves on to tier 2. Tier 2, in my opinion, is why not the hardest tier. That probably is tier 3. It's definitely the most complex due to all the different things you can do and different priorities you have with it.
And every once in a while, it can just, freeze all your party members solid, and then you just have a terrible time.
Yeah, I totally did not lose 15 minutes in a race one time because tier 2 decided to be trolling with imps and muddles.
Yep.
There are 4 parts of tier 2 here, and we have Tiger at the bottom, we have Magic in the back, there's Tool, the weird gear-looking thing in the middle, and Hit, the blue muscular dude on the right. And they all have different problems that you have to kind of solve, but they also have different things you can kind of use against it. Magic in the back can be muted, which basically takes out the fight. Tool can be instant killed. But they have horrible attacks like this, which can freeze some people. They can cast Muddle, they can cast Zombie, they can cast Imp.
Looks like Zelfer had to take a reset. I wasn't looking at his stream, but something gave him a bit of trouble.
And was the spicy chicken. Looks like he was having a few problems with it. So we'll see if he can take him out in take 2.
So, while Jex Vrock is definitely ahead at the moment, Mr. Entity is actually going to be grabbing his last Esper here. Do you think he's going to try and find a character for the skip? Or do you think he's just going to charge through the tower?
Well, he has the skip. You only need 9 characters. And he
I
has
thought he
9.
needed 10. Okay, sorry.
Nope. Everyone has the skip. And this is honestly getting a little bit closer. He's going to get his last Esper. And Sid isn't too far behind him at the moment as well. And all it takes is one bad Kefka fight for some of these positions to get jostled at the end.
I think Sid might have hit the wrong button, and yeah, he wanted to talk to. Oh, well, hey, he found Edgar. Not that anyone cares. So the children in there will actually tell you what the check is going to be, which is something I found out like a week ago, because finding things out is nice. So he just did a quick check on it, and he's like, I don't want a character, so now he's just gonna leave.
Yes, it's one of the few good things about this check. Penumbra is a very difficult check because you have to do a boss with 2 random characters. But being able to spy it ahead of time make it very useful because you obviously don't want to do a horrible check if you don't need to.
Yeah. And sometimes there's a flag that will the Punbaba fight 1 is actually a fight you can have somewhere else if the right flags are on. And one time I saw before the Esper skip existed, the characters fight him as one of the statues, and they got blown out of the tower and had to redo the entire thing.
Yeah, that's why that flag is now there, because I think that got a lot of people mad. No one wants to be sneezed out, but unnecessary Pumbaba. So now he can go hang out on his own in Mobiz.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so Jack is now on tier 3. Tier 3 is a little interesting in that we have 2 targets. Girl, you have to kill first, or she will fully revive Sleep. And she only has 10,000 HP, but she absorbs every element. And our runners with throws and flares and stuff like that have more than enough non-elemental damage. But in some runs, sometimes you're lacking on that, and being able to kill Sleep can be a little bit of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But that won't come up in this run. They all have plenty of tools available.
Oh, absolutely.
So now it's
and there's the calmness skip that we're hoping that the runners will all end up doing.
Yep. So we didn't talk about that before as much, but calmness is instant death, and there are we know that when you kill Sleep, he'll do 1 to 2 calmnesses, and there are plenty of ways to avoid it. Jack is deciding to use Fenrir, which gives everyone the image status, which will let his characters avoid calmness, and you know, I think there's a very small % chance that it can still kill someone, but it's very, very rare for it to happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, and here it is. Just once. Okay, we're good. Now, Sleep is that one, I think, did manage to throw down a train at him, which blinded and muted all of his characters, so he is actually in a not great position at the start of this fight. He managed to use a remedy on one of them, but that's still an awful lot of problems he might be encountering.
Yeah, train is particularly annoying because there's only 2 sources of mass status heal: Mantra, which is a blitz, and the Unicorn Esper. And sometimes you get into a loop where you can't heal the statuses enough, and you know, tier 3 or Kefka will keep throwing that at you. It is rather rude sometimes.
I don't think it's cost me a run yet, but it's absolutely cost me a lot of time.
Oh, I'm sure it's cost me a run at this point. Train has been very mean to me at times. I'm sure I've lost runs because of it.
Oh, sad.
But, you know, it looks like here Kefka should probably go down pretty quick. You know, has 64,000 HP, and after the first 32,000, we'll go into what's called the Goner state, which start charging up from the move Goner, and when he's not charging up, he could potentially counterattack with some pretty nasty stuff. So Kefka becomes a little bit of a damage rush to see if you can do enough damage to kill him before that Goner goes off.
It looks like he actually managed to damage him enough so the Fallen One did not actually occur at the start of the fight, which is super helpful.
Very rare to pull off, but very helpful when it does.
Yeah. And I'm not damage counting, but he's got to be at least 50k at this point. Yep, he's dead. Okay. All right. 145 something.
That is good game.
Our second runner?
Yeah. Yes, that is our second runner to finish. First on stream, so that is a good game to Jack.
GG. To Jack's frock.
And
we will ask him that question when we get to talk to him.
And we'll get him back in. We'll get him in here in a second. So, GG's and chats to him. Let me message him and see if he's down for a interview.
Oh, and yes, as some of our chat have pointed out, Sid is also in Gomo now, so that is everybody. Everyone is free to enter Kefka's Tower as soon as they're done with their current whatever they're doing.
Yes, we should see a series of, you know, quick wins by our 3 runners. You know, like we said, it's anyone's game. All it takes is one wipe on a boss or a part of Kefka for someone to jump up position.
Yep, and Zelfer demonstrating that with really poorly timed shrapnel on everybody. That is a nasty spell that can sometimes just cause so much damage.
I believe Jack is waiting for the Bree Barnfit interview, so we should have him in here momentarily.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yep. All right, joining us is Jack, our featured winner on the restream. GG, Jack.
GG's.
Yeah. How do you pronounce your name?
Jexvrock.
Okay. So we were saying it right. It is just difficult.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, how do you feel? What'd you think of the race?
That was irritating. I found 10 out of 14 characters before I even had a second Esper.
That was pretty much what almost every runner was in.
Yeah.
The Espers were a huge fight. I mean, Port Zelfer is at 13 of 14 characters, so you were not alone in that.
Mm-hmm.
What?
It was pretty obvious early on that all of you guys would be doing the statue skip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I can't believe everybody just found characters like I did. I thought I was just, having my kind of luck once again, just finding characters.
It seemed like offense wasn't that much of a problem for you after a certain bit. Was there kind of anything early on that you obviously the stronger abilities really help play a factor to that, but was there kind of anything that really clicked and opened the seat up, for you?
Grabbing fixed dice right out of the gate, using YNPC delete to get to the weapon shop, and grabbing the fixed dice over the Esper.
In the end, it probably saved... Oh, there's a possession on Sharknook. Probably saved you a lot of time over the entirety of the race. I believe you grabbed Bum Rush near the beginning, didn't you?
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Just so I didn't forget about it.
That was actually something else that a few other people didn't do and did end up costing them quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, because the abilities flag set allows for early Bum Rush.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of helpful. Like the Esper bonuses were not really there to support the Blitz incredibly well. Like it stacked up late game, which was nice.
It's funny, there were very high chances of having stat bonuses, but none of them really seemed to pan out all that well. I think there was like a magic +1, a speed +1, but not really anything game breaking.
There was a strength +2 that I picked up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I slapped that on Celeste towards the end, and well, by the time I got to Kefka, my levels were so high that it just didn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea where I picked up that Valiant knife that I put on Cyan right towards the middle or towards the end of the run. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, time to remove the fixed dice and continue going.
Looks like the Magitech Factory 2 had the Valiant knife.
Oh, that's right, dead check, and I after that second one I just like, all right, I'm not doing these other ones, and I'm gonna just disappear.
Well, apparently it worked out really well for you.
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm as far ahead as I was.
Well, actually,
supposedly, except from Dozen, who got
yeah, I mean, but he wins everything, so there you go. But I think the thing that really put you far ahead was the Doma Dream, because there were 3 Espers in there, and as we were saying, everyone was having a real hard time finding the Espers. Mr. Entity, for example, I don't believe has done the Dream at all, but he's still in Kefka's Towers now, because, he was 3 Espers behind for a very long time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew Science Dream was on my hit list.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a matter of getting enough levels to be comfortable to roll through.
Yeah, the Magimaster was in there, and that did end up throwing one racer off in particular quite a bit of time. It was tragic.
Yeah, you were fortunate to do it rather later. The racer who ran into it did not have Bum Rush and struggled very much more with Magimaster. But I think that really is what pulled you ahead very quick. Those 3 Espers just rattling off. That was pretty clutch.
Yeah.
I was considering rolling through Floating Continent, but it was getting towards the end of the season, I'm just like, I really don't need to do grind fights anymore. And it's a possible another character. One of them is either going to be an Esper or a Dead Check. So I opted on skipping that.
Actually, now that I'm looking at the paper, the floating continent actually had 3 other Espers, so that's where they're all hiding. The Dream and there.
That would have been huge time save. I'm guessing doesn't probably did those, which
That
is why.
is incredibly likely, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Jack, I noticed about halfway through you dropped a fair bit of money on multiple flame shields. So that's, not always like a super popular pick. Elemental shields aren't the flashiest things. So kind of like walk us through, what your decision was behind, grabbing multiple copies of that.
My offense was great at that point in time, but I was lacking good elemental protection aside from the Pally Shield. And I had the Pally Shield on Celeste, and I had the Minerva on Cyan, and my other 2 characters didn't have any kind of elemental protection, so I wanted to get them something.
Makes sense. I mean, that's very solid. I know I personally don't think much about defense when planning out my shop, so definitely a completely different take. And it's it's great to hear like some of that thought process with it, because I think a lot of us forget defense sometimes, and they say defense wins championships or something.
Oh yeah, and after I picked up the Yeti, after a little bit, I ran into the ship, stripped all the characters of the gear, so I could grab that snow muffler and slap it on somebody if they could equip it. As long as characters start with equipment, I love finding the Yeti.
Yes,
just because of that snow muffler.
It's pretty crucial, and sometimes that bone club early on, but definitely the snow muffler is almost always useful.
Mm-hmm. At least there's a purpose to having him in the Worlds Collide as opposed to the normal game.
It's true. So it looks like Mr. Entity and Zelpha are really neck and neck in this tier 2.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to cut back to that, Jack, unless there's anything else you want to plug, anything else you want to add, or commentary about your run before we get back to these 2 runners.
No, that's really about it. Thanks for having me, and GG's.
No Yep,
yeah, GG's. Congratulations on the win.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Now we are back to the tier 2 for both of these racers. It looks like they're both pretty well aware of the fact that you can do a couple cheese strats. I believe both of them have instant killed tools, I think it is.
Yes, tools, yes. They both have already gone ahead and done that. Yeah, it is. These 2 are neck and neck right now. I believe Zelpha came into the fight slightly before Mr. Entity, but Mr. Entity has climbed back very quickly.
Yeah, he, I believe, is stronger as far as character power goes, so he's in a pretty dominant position at the moment if he can just pull just a little bit more ahead.
However, he's relying a bit on Bum Rush, which Bum Rush is extremely powerful, but like I said earlier, not being able to aim it can potentially be problematic, especially in tier 2, where the order in which you kill these pieces might matter, and who he targets might actually matter when it comes to moving past Zelpha or not. It's out of his control.
Am I seeing this correctly in that he has like 5,000 to 6,000 HP on all of his characters?
Yes, he is very high level at the moment.
Okay. My money's on him at the moment then.
Well, I will at least bet money that he won't die.
Mm-hmm. Although, as we were saying earlier, they can just, freeze your characters and then you just get to look at your screen for a few minutes, and that's always fun.
Right. But Tiger is dead, and Tiger is the one who does do the freezing.
Okay.
And it looks like he is running a very powerful Atma weapon combo, then hitting for max damage, which will just tear through every component of Kefka.
Mm-hmm. And as we can see, Sid has just started on his fight as well, so my gosh, every racer still in this game is fighting the tower at this point. And Zelpha is actually still ahead by a little bit, so who knows, he may actually be able to pull ahead, particularly if Bum Rush does not target the proper target on the next tier.
Right. And so, we were talking about tier 3 earlier when Jack was in it, and the problems with sleep and how that shouldn't be an issue for our runners, but the bigger issue is sorry, problems with late girl and how there should be much of an issue. But one of the challenges is sleep and sleep's second tier, because sleep, when he hits his second phase, starts throwing out trains and meteos and counters maneuvers with trains and meteos. And when you rely heavy on magic, being hit with a train as a counter, and so you get silence, can be very hard.
Yeah, and if you're not incredibly buff like Mr. Entity, then the meteos can actually just kill you.
Yes, it's my least favorite thing in the entire game is dealing with Sleep's last tier. Sometimes you want to be able to skip it. A lot of times, Sleep has 40k HP and enters the last tier with 30k when he gets less than 30k. So a lot of our runners will count out mentally how much HP Sleep has to try to be able to queue up attacks very quickly to get through it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And as we were saying earlier, looks like Zilfer was actually managed to get through that fast enough, and it is incredible that in a 2-hour race, basically, all 3 of these racers are fighting the last boss at the same time.
Yes, this is very, very tight. But, it looks like Zilfer, it's potentially going to inch ahead unless things go very crazy here. But this could be one goner animation away from being someone else's race.
Yeah, Mr. Entity is so close to him right now, and Sid just beat his first one as well, so they're all within minutes of each other. By actually just minute, no S needed. And yep, there's Calmness. It did hit Locke. Okay, only 1 kill, and Locke wasn't his main DPS, so, unfortunate, but he'll do fine.
Yeah, I think at this point, sorry. 1 second, I'll let you pick up.
All right, I will attempt, though there is a bit of an issue on the stream at the moment. Okay, it's gone. No, I lied. But Zilfer has been hit by the Fallen One, so hopefully he can recover from that fast enough. His Realm, however, I believe is packing the gem box, and she does have Cure too. He's done that before. Oof, Celeste did go down though, so there's a fair amount of animation that he is wasting is not the right word, but it's not helping him either. Sid is trying to beat up the tier 2, but as we said earlier, so there's quite a bit of time sink that can be going on there. So that is the current state of things. Yep, and Mr. Entity's also been hit by the Fallen One, but I'm pretty sure he has a Mega Elixir, yeah. No, ooh, actually, I don't think he went through the Cyan's Dream. Oh, yep, and it does look like GG. Zilfer has managed to pull it out just probably seconds ahead of Mr. Entity. So, absolutely well done to him. Looks like it's just before the 2-hour mark, so that's, again, quite nice. Oh no, did he just possess Kefka to death? He did. He just possessed Kefka to death.
I did that trick.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
I did that trick earlier today, and I don't know if Mr. Entity just realized it, a little bit later into his fight, but it is a nice little thing to pull at the end because, at that point, who cares? The character's gone.
He might have actually won if that was the case, if he had just done it immediately. Oh, that's so incredibly close. But Zilfer actually is the number 2 winner at the moment, so if we want to get him and then Mr. Entity, if they feel like coming in to say hi.
Yeah, let me... Oh, hold on a second.
Did Sid forfeit?
No. Technical difficulties on my side. It should be fixed in 1 second.
Okay. All right, so we're going to grab someone in here to talk with us about their race, and then we'll hopefully be getting to see the very end of Sid's race as well, because it looked like he was doing pretty well.
Yes, my apologies. I cannot read left from right on the restream, so he should be back in a second.
It's fine. Technical difficulties happen.
Yep. All right, Zilfer will be in a second. He's gonna jump in the waiting room in a second.
Oh no, my list of questions. Oh no, his is blank. Oh, Sid has just reached the 3rd tier.
Yep. All right.
And everyone seems to be doing pretty well.
And joining us now is Zelfer. GG, Zelfer.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
That was an incredibly close race in the last few seconds there.
Apparently, I really had no idea. I thought I was way behind, to be honest. But yeah, I had no idea. And then as soon as I put in exclamation point done, I was like, oh, look, everybody's here with me. Hey, hi, guys.
Yeah, and I believe you beat Mr. Entity by a matter of, like, probably 20, 30 seconds at most.
Yeah, I must have been that close because I let me look at the time. Yeah, about 30 seconds. Yep, looks about right.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So, what did you think of the seed?
What do I think of the scene?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, probably. Well, the flag set was interesting. Having tough enemies in the beginning just makes it interesting in the beginning, and that's always fun. So I was appreciative of that. I don't know if I should blame the seed for it being a nightmare, or if I just happened to pick all of the wrong things. I don't know. I felt like I got every single dead check in the game, and 13 characters is not what you want to see when you only need 9 for a skip. So I mean, there's that too. So I have some words for it, but it's probably my own fault for just not picking the right things.
Well, funny story. Everyone had very similar problems with the characters. You actually did find the most as far as the people we were watching, but not by too much. Everyone else had 10.
10, huh? Oh, actually, 10's not too bad. 10's like almost the sweet spot, because you want 9. 9 is perfect. 10 is pretty close to perfect.
Mm-hmm.
13, you don't want 13, guys. Do not go for 13 characters. It's not the plan.
You almost had the whole crew together.
Yeah.
Almost had the old crew. If I would have seen where the last one was, I'd be like, sure, join the team. Why not? I got everybody else.
So Edgar was hiding out in the Punbaba checks.
Yeah. At that point, I was like, I got so many dead checks done, and I got so many characters done. It doesn't matter what I pick at this point. It's going to give me an Esper, so I'm just picking the quickest ones.
Actually, if you had stopped to grab him, it would have cost you your place in the race, so well done.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Edgar. Nothing against you personally. You were just not the play today.
It was very close at the end between you and Mr. Entity. You guys were neck and neck going into the, the final Kefka and everything. Was there any kind of point where you felt like something with offense kind of clicked? Because, offensively, after about 30 minutes, everyone was just zooming through, the seed.
Oh, yeah. At the end, the offense is usually trying to find the offense in the beginning. That's the real trick to this kind of thing. No, because at first my rods were doing good, and there was at some point where the rods were just like, yeah, I'm going to do max damage. And then at that point, everything just kind of breezed by.
Mm-hmm.
Usually for offense, I do like to take the unscaled dragons, but I think by the time I was at the level to take them on, I only had 3 Espers, and I was like, well, I think I'm going to have enough power once I find everything else, so never mind. I'll fight the dragons another day. Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, please don't kill him. Ooh.
Looks like Sid is at the very end here, and let's see if we can pull it off. But we have Mr. Entity waiting in the waiting room, who finished only 40 seconds behind you, Zelfer. Was there anything you wanted to add before we leave you?
I think I have shared everything that I want to. Thank you guys for having me.
That was a scene.
GG's to everybody. Take care.
No problem. GG.
All right. GG, well, man. All right. We have Mr. Entity here.
I had so many things and so many dead checks.
All right, we'll just grab him in the chat. And as we were finishing, there was a very dramatic finish from Sid. That was... Oh, God.
I definitely took fights at the start to get my
We'll talk
level
about
up
that when we
and
get with him.
also,
But for the moment, we have Mr. Entity in with us.
Paladin. Hello!
Yep, GG's. Well done.
Yeah, I almost beat Zelfer.
That was So hilariously close.
Yeah, I blame the old man.
Everyone can and should blame the old man.
I agree.
Now, I believe you possessed Kefka to death. I believe that's the case?
That was the plan. That was why I didn't even bother putting Life 3 up for calmness, because I knew it didn't matter at all.
I did the exact same move in a race earlier today. Just, Possessor has to survive calmness, and then GG Kefka. So how come that didn't go off right away? It looked like it was a little bit of a pause before you could get the Possess off.
Oh, it just has a chance to miss, so it took him 3 goes.
Oh, I did not know
okay.
that.
Neither did I.
It can miss, but it will kill anything that it hits.
Oh man. So over the course of the race today, we were talking so much about like all these small things in the game that we didn't know, and we learned this last week or a month ago. And today I learned possession can kill anybody.
Yep, literally anything in the game. And as you noticed with Kefka, you don't even get like the
It goes poof.
or any of the event stuff is just gone. Like when you pummel Vargas and then his bears disappear, and then you don't even get experience and junk.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Huh. So I guess it's kind of a two-edged sword in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you still get experience if you possess things. You just don't get whatever fancy stuff thing does.
Okay.
I don't know why pummel obviates the experience from Vargas, but it does.
Huh. Apparently, possession has about a 60% accuracy rate according to chat. So it looks like as we were talking about the dramatic finish between you and Zelfer, if you had hit with the first possession, you probably would have taken it because he was 38 seconds ahead of you, it looks like.
Yeah, Strago missed, and then got Havoc Wing to the face, and I had to raise him, so it was like 4 or 5 rounds worth of time.
Oh man,
Instead
yeah,
of
that
just
would have
missed
absolutely
kill.
won. That's so sad.
Well, it's just a racy for fun.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the seed tonight?
It seems like from what I can tell in the spoilers, everyone wound up doing way too much.
Yes.
yes.
I
The
had
minimum number of characters was 10.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I did 10 characters and at least 4 or 5 dead checks. It was just everything went not good.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're like 30 minutes in, everything is so easy that you're just like, oh, well, I'm definitely losing now because of my choices.
Actually, you were in the lead for, I would say, probably the first 30 minutes.
That would probably be because I stopped to get some levels and unlock a Paladin shield and get Bum Rush immediately.
Well, it looks like one of the main problems was there were 3 Espers hiding in the Kyan's Dream, which was all you needed at one point, but then you did 3 other Esper checks eventually, so...
Yeah, I mean, I went for fast things by the end. I was going to buy my way through the auction house and the Tizen guy, but I wound up having no money at that point, so
Mm-hmm.
I just kept getting bosses that did not deliver on the gyps.
Darn bosses.
Yeah. It was doing me dirty.
You,
Well, at least...
you were definitely the
I-
highest level of everyone, though.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
yes.
I had 3 experience eggs on my characters for most
That's-
of the seed.
That's
Did
right.
Zelfer not find those? Because he usually goes to Albrook.
I don't think he did, no.
Yeah, he didn't find them,
No.
and I don't think I believe Jack went there earlier, but elected not to get experience eggs. But no one bought 3 like you did. We did watch you
Yeah.
break every piggy bank you had to afford those.
Mhm.
It
That's
was
what you do. That's
it
what
was
you
an
do
act-
when you find them.
It's
Especially
true.
immediately after you bought 2 elemental shields and killed most of your money.
Yeah, it was, especially it being, I think you were an hour in when you bought them. It was rather late in the seed, and you still managed to get a lot of mileage out of them.
Well, my progression at the time was so crappy that I figured it would have time to pay off.
Well, you were right.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
almost brought you the number 2 on the streaming.
Yeah, apparently there was an offering in the mix. If I had gone to Zozo at some point, that could have also helped me a lot, because I had 2 characters that had basically perfect weapons for the Atma weapon.
Yeah,
for
your
the offering, the Atma weapon and the Valiant knife. So
Celeste was just ripping through everything as you were going through the tower.
yep, I mean, once you get to a pretty decent level, you do the 10Ks all the time.
Get to it.
Especially if you're sitting on heal spells and, a Minerva stuff can't really hurt you, and even if they do, you're at such a high level that it doesn't matter that much anyway.
Any deficiencies you have with your setup just gets mitigated by the fact you're high enough level you don't care anymore.
Yep. So pretty much everyone but Locke was doing the 10Ks with everything. And
Yeah.
I had Merton strats going for like a solid 10 minutes. That was fun. And then half the time it was not at all useful because Poltergeist.
Now, I believe you also possessed Poltergeist to death, which is just so
I
many
did.
levels of irony.
I did not, but had I been thinking harder about my warp and my skip, I would have just warped in with Strago multiple times and possessed things to death. I forgot he had it until just before Kefka.
Right.
I
I
do-
saw someone did it. I guess it might have been Sid.
I do wonder if that's worth the warping in and out, though, for some of those bosses. You're so high level at that point, I feel like it would take less time to power on through than it would the
Well, I
strat.
certainly would have done it on one of the sides,
Yeah.
which would have saved me a bit of time, especially if it had been the right side. I don't remember where Strago... I think I actually wound up putting Strago straight down the middle, which was pointless. I already killed those two bosses.
Yeah, they're two bosses. It's, more
Yeah.
than one.
Yeah, but it went fine, aside from it looks like it wasn't an easy race to route for anybody.
No.
No,
But-
I don't think anyone had a route they were happy with. I think everyone was struggling in their own ways.
Yeah.
The seed was very...
Maybe doesn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
Did everyone remember that you could get Bum Rush immediately?
No, there was one person who likely forgot.
Oh,
But the other two, like you, went and got it almost right out the gate and
Yeah.
leaned heavily on it.
yeah. There's a couple decisions in a draft that mean you do specific things, and if you get that stronger abilities, it means go get Bum Rush if you have Blitz, and if you have Y Remove, it means go get the Cursed Shield immediately.
Yep.
And sometimes I then go to Mount Zozo, because there's a lot of treasure in there, and you can get in with a Y Remove. And if you've got a couple decent levels, you can kill a dragon on the way.
Those are all things that don't come up if you're like me. You only do standard race presets and Coliseum. Those are, and that's one of the fun things about Worlds Collide is that there's so many aspects of it that you might not even touch. That you can be great at some things, and then you get into an element like this, and you realize, man, I don't know anything about Y Remove. I should probably learn this.
Yeah, when I was doing my my bracket for the tournament, the only real bit of strategy I had was put Y Remove on the first time and see if the other person knows how to use it.
Well, it would have worked against me.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't playing against you. I had to play against Locke, and that guy's ridiculous.
He is pretty okay at this game. He's very good.
He is.
Yeah.
So we have Sid in the waiting room, our last finisher. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or plug before we let you go?
Not really. Just thanks to the Restream teams and Atma, as usual, for the community's race. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much, and GG again.
GG.
Yeah.
All right, and I think now we're gonna move Sid in, our final featured finisher. So he will be joining us in a minute.
Yep, I believe that's him.
Yep. Sid,
GG,
GG.
Sid. So unfortunately the Magimaster cost you a bit of time there.
Oh, yeah, a lot. And that's just me being stubborn.
We were all watching and going like, kill him, he's almost dead, get him. But then at the very end, he just, I believe, doomed both of your characters, which is a really lame way to go out.
It is, especially because you had the defense, with Cyan and Celis, and that was the only thing that they could get around it was his double dooms.
Yep. And Celis had a memento ring on, so if they had doomed her, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
that's
the-
like a memento ring one. Okay.
Yeah, we
Out of that. I'm like, I don't remember if I saved before that. I had just before that lost a ton of time not saving at the beginning for the.
Mhm. Well, actually, despite that, it ended up being a very close race between the last three of you, with all three of you fighting some form or another of Kefka's tower at the very end there at the same time.
Yeah, that surprised me because I'm like, oh, I'm way out of this. Like, I come in 20 minutes behind everybody else.
Well, everyone found a minimum of 10 characters, so that saved you a bit of time because Zelfra, I believe, had 13.
Found Gao. Immediately turned around.
Yeah, we saw that. That was a smart move, knowing that was completely unneeded, and the bail and go do other checks.
Now, I believe it was you who used possession on the possessed painting.
Yeah, Uncharted Nook. And
Nice.
I that it just kicks your character out of the party because I was gonna plan on using it on tier 4.
Mm-hmm.
But that was an oopsie. But it, like, it was still smart because that would have been a quick, like, a really long fight anyway. Because Imara wouldn't have done anything, and it was just relying on like 7 was in the party maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, anything to save time is always a good plan, to be perfectly honest, when it comes to racing.
Yeah, I just wanted to save time later.
Now, I unfortunately wasn't keeping as good of notes as I probably should have, but I believe at the end, were you the one who Umera was the only one left in their group and they had to run, or was that Mr. Entity?
Yeah, that was me. I thought I had Moogle Charm on him, and I forgot that I didn't.
Yeah, for a second I was like, oh no, he's got a wipe, but thankfully managed to get out of there just in time.
Yeah, because I got level 5 doomed. And I was like, I didn't say.
Yeah, that was what happened. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
That one stupid spell can ruin so many runs. I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. Is your microphone doing it?
Give me some dB and voice meter. Is that better?
That's a little bit better, yeah.
I'll just jack it up to max then. How's that?
Still a bit popping, but apart from that, it's fine.
All right.
In either case, well done. Any particular thoughts about the seed?
Just me being dumb. I thought the seed was fine. I didn't think it was all that difficult. It's just a lot of dead checks, but it was so strong when she started grinding that nothing was really in the way except for, Magi Master.
Mm-hmm. I believe you were right around the middle as far as the power scale goes. Mr. Entity had way more levels than everybody else. He grabbed 3 experience eggs, but I think you were stronger than the other 2.
I didn't even search for experience eggs. I was just going once I found those rods.
Yeah, the rods in the beginning were super helpful for everybody because I think everyone checked the Narsh shop because everyone went there almost first. And that that got you through the first few monsters, which apparently could have been really difficult in this seed.
Yeah. As long as you remember to save after grinding. That's the takeaway I got from that.
Mm-hmm. Well, personally, I'm super bad at not grinding, so...
I mean, if you can get away with not grinding and still get through the seed, you're probably going to be faster anyway.
Yeah, that's probably why doesn't he ends up, winning things. Oh well. So, any particular thoughts on anything else before we head out?
No, not particularly. I was going to do another race after this, but for the draft race, but Nuke Move can't do it tonight, so I will probably do that tomorrow.
Oh man, plenty of drafting. You're getting this is definitely good practice then for your next round.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Should probably do
That's
some.
it. Have fun. Hopefully y'all had fun watching.
All right. Well, sounds good. And GG.
Yeah, GG
GG's.
said. Good job. All right, I think that's it. 1 second. Sorry, moving one. Okay, Sid's gone now. So I think that's it. I think I want to say GG again to all of our runners, and
Well done.
thank you to Franklin, our tracker, for helping us with everything. And
A very difficult job this race in particular.
yes, it was especially with all the long routing. There was a lot to track. And if this interests you, you should join our Worlds Collide Discord and community. You can find all the information at ff6wc.com. We do weekly Saturday night community races like this, where we try to have them be different each time. And this week's was a showcase of one of our current tournaments we're doing, which is the player draft tournament, where our players get to go back and forth picking different flag sets to craft a unique game on the fly, and a format that's really kind of exploded in popularity the last few weeks in our community. I think a lot of people really have taken to it, and I think it has a life beyond just the tournament they're in, and you can kind of see why. You get a lot of crazy stuff like tonight with it.
Yeah, super fun and very unique.
Yeah. So yeah, do you have anything else?
Not particularly. Just a big thanks to the Restream team. Seto Kaiba was not only doing the commentary, but also doing the Restream himself. So, lots of thanks to you, and Franklin as well. And I've been Amarik, or Explorer